Welcome back to another podcast of the Waive Fair variety. It's been a minute since we've all gotten together. Mr. Taylor looking dapper as usual. My name is Dave Greco, and I love baseball. Mr. Rollo.
Happy to be back. Nice to always talk about baseball with you gents, and we're gonna be picking back up the Cy Young conversation today with a particular spotlight. We're gonna get warmed up talking about a few other pitchers, but it'll be a particular spotlight on an awfully special and dominant pitcher of the '90s today that I'm excited to talk about. So with that, I'll kick it on over to Matt.
I'm excited to talk about it too. I'm Matt, and this is the Wave It Fair podcast. And very apropos because this is the 50th anniversary of the very home run that was waived fair.
Not today.
No, not today, no.
Okay.
In 2025, October 21st, I believe.
Huh. Look at you.
Immortalized also in one of the great movies of all time, Good Will Hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. So we're going to talk about Cy Young's first. So let's roll Cy Young.
Let's go.
So let's see, 91, huh?
1991.
I remember that year very well. Because I grew up watching the Braves, and that was the first year the Braves were any good. And I remember Glavine winning that Cy Young.
Yeah, this was a time when I didn't have cable. As an A's fan, I didn't care for anybody else because I was a child and didn't like anybody. Kind of like how you Red Sox fans are as adults.
Oh yeah.
But very interested in hearing your recollections of Mr. Glavine because I jumped on the bandwagon of the Braves probably a little later than I should have.
He had a great year. In the playoffs, he was kind of ordinary. In the playoffs and World Series that year. I remember a lot of things about that year, mainly another Cy Young pitcher that we're going to talk about in that particular year of 1991, started the season 2-11 and wound up 14-13 and winning the game 7 of the NLCS and then pitching in game 7 of the World Series and going 7 and 2/3 shutout innings, game 7. Mr. John Smoltz. So, but Glavine, had a great year. He was never my favorite pitcher on that team, but he's a Hall of Fame. He's a 300 game winner.
Yeah, it's funny because if you were to pick the flashiness,
Mm.
I think you'd probably go Smoltzy first,
Mhm.
and then Glavine was kind of like the doctor you go to see when you want to know if it's infected or not. And then you had Maddux, who we'll spend some time on later today. That kind of reminded me of the guy who the doctor would call and say, "Hey, can you run these samples for me?"
Mhm.
And that would be Maddux.
Mhm.
So yeah, I can see why those guys didn't have that swagger.
Glavine, I obviously have a little less of a clear, like, recollection of him, because I was still very myopic on the Red Sox, even more so as a younger kid back then. But I remember always, uh, always thinking that Smoltz stood out. He threw the hardest of the three, uh, and Maddux always kind of struck me as like looking, not really looking like a pitcher for as good as he was, which I think we'll talk more about too when we focus on him a little bit more. But but Glavin just kind of like the vibe with him is interesting because it's almost like he feels like a Hall of Fame number two. He like his numbers are very clearly Hall of Fame worthy, but by just by virtue of maybe the team that he played on, like I wonder if he would have been as great if he was on another team surrounded by lesser pitchers. Like if he would have gotten more spotlight or if he wouldn't have, I don't know. It
Well,
kind of reminds me of how like some of Dylan's great albums still have some songs that are like kind of so-so on them, but those songs seem better because they're surrounded by all-time classics. Blonde on Blonde is a great example where it's a double album, so there's like 14 songs on there, and some of them are just kind of like okay, but when they're sitting next to Just Like a Woman, Visions of Johanna, Sad Eyed Lady of the Lowlands, every song on there ends up sounding just a little bit better. And so Glavin's an interesting case to me because he just didn't stand out as much as the other two. And I wonder if he would have stood out more on another team or if he would have ended up being like less remarkable because he would have been part of the trio. So I'll just lob that little grenade. I can tell Greco's already exasperated with me, and we're less than 10 minutes into this podcast.
That wasn't a grenade. That you defused that bomb the second you started rambling for 5 minutes about Bob Dylan, and then said the same thing again when he came back about no. So Glavin, there, I think there could be some truth in it if he was not in such an independent role, right? So when you think about guys on a team, even guys in a lineup, right? There a lot of times they're affected by who's hitting around them.
Mm.
Relievers, what kind of games are they inheriting, right? Saves, closers. How many opportunities are they getting? Is the team around them that good where they're getting a lot of opportunities for saves? Um, Starters are very much individual,
Mm.
right? Where they start a game, they have the impact, they have the ability to shut down a team, right? Now, could you say a different pitching coach? Maybe. Could you say a different battery mate, like a different catcher? Maybe. But as far as starters, I think there's some of the more independently effective, either way, ineffective or effective players on a baseball team.
Mm.
I would say this. So Maddux didn't get to the Braves until 93.
Mm.
So Glavin was really the ace of that team that year.
Good point. Good point.
And you know, they they also had Steve Avery who won 18
Oh,
games.
Avery. I forgot about Avery.
Um, and they also had a guy named Pete Smith who was a good pitcher as well.
That's an
Uh,
unfortunately generic name for
yeah,
Mr. Pete Smith.
and Smoltz was the only hard thrower. Um, and but they were built all around their starters. They didn't even get a closer until the end of the year with when they used Alejandro Pena.
Yeah. I mean,
So
Glavin was that lefty in that lineup.
Mm.
In that
crafty
rotation.
lefty, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, he again, not flashy. And I mean, we're saying Smoltzy is the wild card in there. Put him in another, put him in another rotation with, just talk for you guys, right? Imagine him with um, Pedro, Schilling, Arroyo. Who's the quiet one now?
Yeah.
Right? It would be Smoltzy. You'd be like, who's this dude?
Mm.
Right? But in retrospect, I mean, Glavin was a beast, and he pitched for a while.
Yep.
Ended his career at the Mets. I know that made folks sad. I'm sure.
Mhm.
Uh, but hell of a pitcher.
Yeah, it was an interesting so that year was an interesting year because they were the worst team in baseball the year before. Um and they traded, Dale Murphy, who in the middle of the year, who was like the the face of the franchise. And then the next year they I think they were 500 at the All-Star break, and then they came all the way back and won 94 games.
Was he there, Nomar?
Uh, Dale Murphy,
Yeah.
he was. I'm trying to think of
He,
somebody.
he needed he needed to get off the team in order for them to win.
I suppose, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, he was his hitting was going down, but he was still a Gold Glove outfielder.
If this happened in Boston, he would have been the reason why they had success after him.
They
Petty,
needed to get rid of him.
you petty little pricks. Yeah.
Hey, listen,
Um,
listen, listen. This is a sore subject, considering we just had to have mourn the loss of Mookie, or the anniversary of the loss of Mookie within the last few days. I know it was the anniversary of us trading him away, which was like the kind of a real kind of demarcation point for this franchise of saying we really don't give a shit as much anymore.
Congrats. I'm hoping you're celebrating.
No, mourn. At least I mourned.
yeah, it
So
was kind
anything
of.
else?
Mookie seems to be in a happier place.
So with Glavin, um, actually, let me look here. We didn't do this yet. So the guys who followed up with him, Lee Smith, John Smiley, Jose Rio, Dennis Martinez. Oh, there's Steve
Presidente.
Avery. Yeah, Steve Avery, Andy Bennis, and Mitch Williams.
Boy, Mitch Williams.
Yeah, yeah, he was something else. Um, I mean, I recognize all those names. I totally forget about Smiley. I do remember his cards though. But
Okay, I'm gonna click his name right now, and if he's not smiling, I'm gonna be really upset.
He's a lefty. He was good. Pirates, right?
yeah, yeah.
He
He,
really didn't. He really didn't nail the photo. He really needed to have a bigger smile in this photo. Unbelievable. He looks like a bit of a doofus. I'm gonna say it right now.
sorry, Rolo. When your kids go for like the school photos, do you make them retake them?
Like, go back and smile again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I mean, just looking at it, I mean, if WAR means anything to you,
Mm.
Glavin had an 8.5, and then the closest was actually Dennis Martinez, 5.8. Jose Rio at a 5.5, Avery 5.2, and everybody was four and under beyond that.
Now I'm really curious to know if Dennis Martinez is like a cousin of Pedro Martinez. That might make me care about him a little bit more.
Weren't they brothers?
Mm,
Ramon Martinez.
no, they were Dennis Martinez. The reason I know Dennis Martinez is because he pitched for the Orioles for a long time. And the Martinez, they weren't brothers, but Tippy Martinez was their closer.
Oh yeah, I remember the name Tippy. Yeah, yeah. No, he's from Nicaragua.
Mm.
He was a good pitcher. He pitched a perfect game.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I knew
Wow.
that. I knew that about him. Um, yeah. I mean, he tied Glavin that year in complete games. He had a better ERA than Glavin that
Hmm.
year at 2.39. Um, but I mean, Lee Smith, he was second in voting because he had 47 saves that year,
Yep.
which was pretty impressive.
Look at
So
the innings pitched by all these pitchers.
yeah, yeah, 246, 173 for the closer, 207, 204, 222, 210, 223. I mean, pretty big cultural difference when you think about it. So
What the hell's Mitch Williams doing on there? That's what I
30
think.
saves, brother.
Eh, I mean,
And you're talking about a hot team too. I mean, they were in the series that year. I mean, you know, how much you can, how much else you can say about that? Um, all right, so here's what I'm thinking. Since we're gonna spend some time on Maddux, let's knock out some of the American League folks, and so we can kind of end with a little Maddux magic.
Yep.
So, Taylor, you have any thoughts on Roger Clemens at all? Particularly maybe the last year he pitched in Boston.
Let's see. That was 96.
Oh, it was
Uh,
96 that he left in Boston?
yeah, he left Boston after 96.
I thought he left earlier.
Nope.
no, 96. Twilight of his career, Greco.
Yeah.
Wow, so he legit pitched more than 10 years in Boston.
Hmm.
Yep.
Wow,
13 years, I think, in Boston, I think.
I never knew
Uh,
that.
yeah. Yeah, it
Huh.
was but I mean, I can't say honestly that he didn't deserve any of the Cy Youngs he got.
He's the
Certainly
guy.
not with the Red Sox. You know,
All right, so ready? Just up
yep.
the top. Categories he led in. Innings
ERA,
pitched.
starts,
Yeah.
strikeouts, innings pitched. Let's see.
Shutouts.
Yep,
Batters faced. Um, game started.
yep.
I mean,
WAR.
he was a beast.
Yep,
271 innings pitched.
yep.
I mean, so you're going to see this too that the American League is inherently going to have more innings pitched
Mm,
nationally because the National League they're more likely to pull a starter earlier
right.
for an offensive change.
Good shit.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's why you see a lot of these guys in the 240s, Club is 270, which is pretty amazing. Jack McDowell, who we're going to talk about later, 253. Um, I mean, pretty impressive.
Yep.
One name that stands out on here for me, um, and somebody we've alluded to, but I'd love to spend some time on him is Jim Abbott. He was third in Cy Young this year.
You want to hear a good Jim Abbott story?
I
Yes, I
love
do.
Jim Abbott stories.
It's not really a Jim Abbott story. However, uh,
False
I have a
advertising.
I have a very good friend who lives in New York, and he was, um, he pitched, he threw his no hitter with the Yankees,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and she has one arm, and I did. She hides it really well. So she was wearing a sweater one day, and the sleeve from the sweater was hanging off, and I'm like, "So you got the Jim Abbott thing going?" And I didn't realize she had one arm.
Yeah, good job, buddy. Yeah, I was going to say you said here catch, and she didn't.
Oh, if you meet this girl, if you ever met this girl, you would, she'll joke about anything, but she handled it well. But like,
You gotta have a
needless,
yeah, you gotta
that
have a
was
good
all
support.
time embarrassing.
I'm pretty sure I saw that, like the end of that no hitter back in the days when like ESPN Classic was a thing. I
Yep.
remember like flipping through the channels and landed on this game being like, wait a second, what? the Yankees had a pitcher with only one arm. What? It was pretty damn impressive that he was able to get to the big leagues in the first place, but then throw a freaking no hitter in Yankee Stadium. That's
Yeah, yeah. I
a
mean,
pretty amazing moment.
I got familiar with him because he pitched for the Angels for majority of his
Mm.
career. Um, and you know, to see him and how quickly he could field, just transitioning the glove and being able to throw was absolutely amazing. I mean, one of the things that like I think is a great inspirational kind of story for baseball, was that this guy could have, I mean, he dominated in some cases
Hmm.
and had a hell of a career. So I'm always been a fan of Mr. Abbott.
Me too.
It's a pretty cool story. Glad he got some votes. He never actually won any year, I don't think, though, right?
No, any thoughts on any of the others?
Uh,
Mm.
I
I
met
mean,
Scott Erickson when he pitched for the Orioles.
okay, hanging out down in Ball B more.
At the Cask. He
Yeah.
was at the
Oh, there you go.
Cask.
Oh, Boston staple.
Yep.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, hey, listen, we don't get much to say tonight. Let's move it on.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Blackjack McDowell. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. I almost skipped my guy. Now, this was a fun year for Mr. Eckersley. This was kind of like, during the dismantling of my boys and that whole '89 team.
Hmm.
Um, Ricky at this point had already moved on. He was winning World Series in Toronto. Um, I remember Carney Lansford had kind of moved on. Walt Weiss was getting towards the end of his, and they were going to renew his contract, and so he ended up actually in Atlanta. Um, and I mean, you started to see them kind of disband, but Eckersley was that holdover. And this is the year that, if I remember correctly, it's pretty controversial because I'm pretty sure this is the year he won the MVP as well.
Did.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, so he won the AL
he
MVP
did.
and
Wow.
the AL Cy Young this year. Yeah, and I know people were, up in arms because one, it was a pitcher, but two, it was a closer.
Closer. Yeah.
But I mean, 191 ERA, um, pitched in
51
69
saves.
games. Yeah, 51 saves, 80 innings pitched, um, 11 walks, 93 strikeouts.
That's insane.
Um,
Yeesh.
yeah, the guy was a beast.
You'll
Well,
never hear me say that Eck doesn't deserve anything.
mm,
I'll never say that.
Yeah, you're not going to hear an argument from me.
Although I do remember the playoffs that year. Do you remember Greco?
I don't want to talk about it because I'm pretty sure
Uh,
you're the ones. You guys are the ones who knocked us out.
no, it was right. It was the Jays. Robbie Alomar.
Oh, year.
uh,
Yes, that's
Home
right.
run by
Because the
Robbie
Jays
Alomar
went.
off Eckersley.
Yeah, because the Jays went back that year. Yeah, yeah, that was rough. Actually, no, I do remember that very well because my brother is a Toronto Blue Jays fan,
mm.
and so I heard all about
Well, your family just did whatever the hell they wanted with
it.
teams
Pretty
that they
much,
wanted to root for, huh?
pretty much. Yeah, yeah. He's a Blue Jays fan. I was an A's fan. Um, my father was a Yankees fan. My mother was a Red Sox fan, and I think everybody else kind of, my other brothers and sisters were Red Sox, but
So no one dared to be a Padres fan?
only you, Mr. Rolo, only you. I think I'm starting to believe that you're a closeted Padres fan, and one doth protest too much, and you're hoping that Um, Cole ends up on the Padres, and that you get to watch them in all their mediocrity from being on the West Coast because you're a masochist. All right.
Well, it's very kind of you. It's very kind of you to wish such pain upon me.
Well, a
One thing
boy
I
can
will
dream,
say
sir.
about the Padres, I hear a lot of people think that they have the best ballpark, although I find it hard to believe that they have a better ballpark than Pittsburgh.
Yeah, yeah. I heard that too. I've heard that too. I think a lot of it has to do with location too.
Mm. The main thing
Despite
I
them,
hear,
what's that?
the main thing I hear about the Padres park is that it's cavernous and it's hard to hit
It is.
dingers in.
It's big.
Yeah,
It's big. But who cares? It's on the West Coast.
this is a great point. This is a very great point. It's the smartest thing you've said all night so far, Greco.
Oh, now looking at this, your boy makes another appearance here, Mr. Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some names that we're going to see going forward that pop up here. You know, again, Jack McDowell twice.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've seen him. Mike Mussina,
The
this is the
Moose.
first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack Morris with the Blue Jays. Um, Kevin Brown is another name we're going to see quite a bit.
Heavy
And
sinker.
Nagy.
Heavy sinker.
And then Nagy. I remember Nagy standing out to me because um, I'm pretty sure he was still with him. But when Major League came out, he was excuse me, boys.
Pleasure.
I couldn't get to the mute in time. Um, the cold's going around. Everybody's starting to feel it.
Oh no.
Yeah, but yeah, he was still pitching for the Indians when Major League came out. I remember him being kind of the poster child for them for a while during that time. Um, so, any thoughts on any of these guys, gentlemen?
The only thing I remember about, well, I remember Nagy in games when we played him against in the playoffs, and the thing I remember most for is being the guy in the mound when they lost to the Marlins in the World Series.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was tough. Um, what a series, though.
Yeah.
What a series. And I mean, Orlando Cabrera um, came up huge. And that was kind of the beginning of it.
Renteria, you mean?
I'm sorry, Renteria. Yes, I get those two
Edgar
confused.
Renteria.
I do that all the time, all the time.
Well, because we swapped out OCAB for Renteria, and it was a horrible mistake on the Red Sox part.
It certainly was.
Wasn't for the Marlins though.
No, Renteria was quite good for the Marlins and for the Cardinals, incidentally, but
And the
not for
Giants.
us. Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right. Do you guys want to talk about McDowell real quick, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, Jack McDowell, can you please educate me a bit on McDowell? Because he's a big time blind spot. Because the '90s, I feel like either through osmosis or through me like really starting to watch baseball, I know most of these names, heard of them. At least the names that would come up in awards like this. Jack McDowell, I'm like, who the hell are you?
Blackjack. He was a blind spot for the Hall of Fame too.
Huh.
I never thought of him as a Hall of Famer, but I think I'd have to look at his numbers.
So his career numbers are he's 127 and 87. 127 and 87.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
Yeah, and a 3.85 ERA. Decent ERA, but yeah, that win loss is not enough. 85 ERA. Decent ERA, but
Not enough.
It's not enough. Uh-oh. Some sort of wonkiness is going on. I keep hearing my voice echoed back to me in some choppy my voice monstrosity. Monstrosity.
Some reason my internet is crappy right now. I don't know why. But there we go. Jeez.
It still looks like.
Your internet, Quinn?
What was that? It still looks like. What was that?
Are you having trouble with your internet?
I mean, as far as I can tell, it seems to be something that's recently glitched on your end. I don't think it's on my end, but I guess the test will be when Greco
on your end.
comes
I
back.
don't think it's on my end, but I guess the test will be when Greco comes back.
Yeah. All right. Oh, for the love of God.
What's up with the crickets?
We haven't gotten very far because I think Matt's internet is trying to sabotage.
Okay. Taylor's got the Fisher Price internet.
Matt, the picture seems a little smoother right now. Try talking, see if it. Oh no, now it's starting to glitch again.
Talking, see if it. Oh no, starting to glitch again.
And see, I just keep getting my voice boomeranging back in my face. Very disturbing.
Get my voice boomeranging back in my face. Very disturbing.
All right, all right, so we're back. Mr. Taylor has rejoined us from the annals of internet purgatory.
The abyss.
The abyss, yes. So all right. So we were talking about McDowell. Y'all feel comfortable with McDowell? You covered him good?
Yeah, well, the thing I remember about him the most is I don't know if you guys remember that famous hit by Edgar Martinez in '95.
Mm-mm.
Like he hit the double that brought Junior when Griffey Jr. ran around third and
Oh yeah, brought him home.
Yankees in the playoffs. Yeah, he got that hit off of McDowell
That's right.
as a Yankee.
I forgot he was with the Yankees then.
Yeah.
I wonder
But he
what
was a good
result
pitcher,
of-
McDowell, and I think
mean, yeah. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
he was. I think he did win a Cy Young, McDowell.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, this year. Yeah, this year he won one. What are we in 92?
93.
93. 93. We're moving right along. 93. So another name that pops up here, Randy Johnson. First time seeing him.
Uh-huh.
Kevin Apier. Another Jimmy Key, Dwayne Ward, Pat Henkin, and then Juan Guzman. Um, this is kind of the beginning to where we look at the Yankee names are going to start popping up for some of the foundations of some of those teams.
Mm.
And then you look, the last three, number 5, 6, and 7 vote getters that year were all Toronto Blue Jays.
I know.
So that just kind of shows, what kind of, a lot of people don't think about the pitching they had. A lot of them think about, the offense because it was a significant offense. But their pitching was pretty damn good too.
Man.
Yeah.
In
So the next,
93 was that the year that Toronto won?
so they won in '92 and 90. Was it '93 or '91? That was '91.
Let's see.
What's that, buddy? Oh no, the Twins. The Twins were in '91. Yeah, the Jays '92 and '93. Yeah,
There we go. Yeah.
yeah. Mr. Taylor glitching out again.
Looks like it.
Yeah, my man. Yeah, got carrier pigeons doing his
Yep.
internet work.
Yeah. I guess the hamsters stopped running in the wheels of the Wi-Fi.
All right. Well, um, so the next one, David Cohn. With Kansas City, I think a lot of times we think of him with the Yankees.
Oh,
And
yeah, took the thought right out of my brain. Whenever I see David Cohn, I think of his stretch with the Yankees. But then I'm like, wait, he was on the Mets, like the hat, in his picture. So it is is with the Mets. So I don't know if he has any choice over that or who decides on kind of what the official photo is on something like Baseball Reference. But I'm like, oh, I thought he was like, primarily a Yankee. And I mean, he obviously had what, like 5 seasons there. I totally forgot he played for us too.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah, a little step for you guys at the end. Um, I mean, he was a Royal for 1 year. Then get traded. Went to the Mets, and then Toronto. That's where I remember seeing him in the World Series.
Yeah, took the thought.
And then he went back to Kansas City, then back to Toronto again, and then was with the Yankees until he went to the Mets. So I mean, great pitcher, consistent.
Definitely consistent.
I don't think, um, if I remember correctly, this is the only Cy Young.
Consistent.
But Jimmy Key, Randy Johnson, Mussina again, and then Lee Smith again.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty impressive resume. And then the first year, 95, of Mr. Johnson. And then Jose Mesa, Wakefield, your boy, popped up here.
Timmy Wake, yeah, was that was his year with the Pirates, right?
No, he was with Boston at that point.
In '95?
That's what it says.
Oh.
David
Yeah.
Cohn again, Mussina, and then Nagy. But yeah, Wakefield, Boston.
Oh yeah, that's right. Huh.
2.95 ERA.
Wakefield, I'm telling you that as it goes with most knuckleballers, I think it's a fickle mistress, that knuckleball. if it's really dancing, you can have a monster season or great game, where you're just making people look like fools. But if it's not dancing, you will get smashed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody knows where it's going to go.
Right.
Catcher doesn't know where it's going to go. Pitcher really doesn't know where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one who had probably the most control was Ari Dickey.
Yes.
And that's because he threw so hard.
Well, right. Like, I feel like the discrepancy between his knuckler and his fastball was one of the largest I've ever seen, where I feel like he could get up into the high 80s, if not like low 90s with his fastball.
Yeah. And then his knuckle was, probably low 80s.
Yeah.
He threw that hard too. Where Wakefield was like 84, 85, 60
Right.
knuckle.
I also find it interesting. I guess I'd have to do a little bit of a deep dive on this, but I know with Wakefield, when he would show his grip, even though it's called a knuckleball, he actually uses fingertips.
Yeah, a lot of guys do.
Kind of just got caught. Yeah. Um,
Um,
I'm wondering if any guy these days, and I'm not even familiar with any active knucklers, but I wonder if anyone would even use their knuckles these days.
so the original, like I've never actually seen like everybody thinks about a knuckleball
Yeah, like that.
as being like something weird,
Hmm.
but usually it's legit like because there's no grip here, right? So a lot of times it's you got your these pressed in your fingertips and pushing
Hmm.
down.
And it's about pushing off the ball with that.
Yeah, some weird stuff, man.
It's some voodoo.
It is
poor
some voodoo.
poor VTech had a hell of a time trying to catch it back in the
Yeah,
day.
we highlighted that.
Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you what. Let's pause again. Let's see where
Hmm.
Mr. Taylor is.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, we got Mr. T back.
Yep.
He's a little skinnier, but he's here, so we like it. Um, so now we're gonna go on a run here because the next four Cy Youngs, and obviously you've seen the format, and we haven't made it a secret that we're gonna be talking about Mr. Maddux now. Um, the reason why we're gonna do it this way is because I found a pretty cool documentary that I'd like to kind of go through with the guys, and they all watched it. We all watched it ahead of time, but figure maybe we'll watch it now and kind of narrate and discuss our thoughts about it as we watch. It's pretty significant, and I'm really understating this that somebody can win a Cy Young Award 4 years in a row. Um, do it for um, a team in Rolo. I think this kind of illustrates a little bit of your Tom Glavine question. Just highlighted with Maddux. Did it with a team that wasn't really a contender, that didn't really have the pieces around him, and then went to a contender and continued that same pace as a starter. So we're going to tee this up real quick, um, and we're going to kind of honor a Mr. Maddux, who I've gotten a little bit more, I guess, appreciation for, specifically after watching this.
I mean, even out of sheer fatigue, I feel like sometimes the voting body would be like, let's give it to someone else. Like you saw that with Michael Jordan in the 90s. Michael Jordan, except for the years when he went to play baseball for a few years, you probably could have made an argument he should have won every single year that he was playing in the 90s, the MVP. But they were like, let's give Karl Malone a few, maybe a cute, they kind of tried to spread it around a little bit. And so you'd almost think that with, Maddux or other good pitchers, obviously he was on a team with on his very team where it could have maybe gone to other guys. but but like to get it 4 years in a row is just unheard of.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
All right, let's tee it up. I didn't realize how much of a influence Vegas had on him either.
Me neither.
No, I didn't. I had no idea he was from Vegas.
All right, here we go.
Got a whole lot of money that's ready to burn, so get those stakes up higher.
There's nothing Vegas, nothing glitz about him. The glasses on the mound, the professor look. But Vegas is, of course, a magic town.
Maddux is just working him over.
Everything he did on that mound was an illusion, and he wanted to create it that way.
Watch this ball move.
He was a magician with the baseball because it always appeared to be something other than what it actually was.
He was the guy who could see through the court. He had x-ray vision. He could tell what was coming.
Just watch this guy work and you just shake your head.
It felt to me like a David Copperfield thing where you would just go out
Well, he was a pigeon-toed toddler. I remember he used to wear these orthopedic shoes that were like boots, you know. Well, we'd get to messing around and he'd start kicking me in the shins with those things. They were heavy, they left marks, and he would laugh about it. So he was always a mischievous little.
Yes, the lesser Maddux.
When we were kids, you know, we were best friends, you know, military family growing up.
Pretty renowned, though, as a pitching coach.
It is interesting how it definitely runs in the family of how they think about pitching is clearly ahead of a lot of others. But it's interesting how some people can translate it into doing it and others just can't.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of times people say that the people who can teach can't do it. But I'll tell you what, you know, we're in comparison to Greg, he didn't have as significant of a career. But he didn't have a bad career either.
No. Relief pitcher.
No. Well, and he was actually we're going to see it in a minute, but he started against Greg too. Him and Greg,
that's right,
when he was with the Phillies and the Cubs. So, but yeah, I mean, he had a pretty decent career. Clearly knows the craft.
So we'd always go somewhere new. You didn't know anybody, but we always had one another.
I think I was 8 or 9 years old when my father got stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. My dad always wanted to be a poker dealer. As luck would have it, his last station was here in Vegas. So he was able to put his 20 years in, and then he started dealing poker. My brother was a big part of it. He used to hang out with his friends.
We'd play pickup games, you know, we'd throw the bat and do the thing about who'd be captain. And, you know, here we are at 15, he's at 10, and he's playing with us. And I'd get first pick, and I said, I'll take Greg. And they go, why you want to take him? I said, he's the best player out here. You kidding me?
You know, whether it was dodgeball or flag football or basketball.
Rolo, if you can have a problem with any, like, pictures.
Look at that stud.
Dude.
I'll tell you what.
That is a haircut there.
The thing that was really distracting for me in watching this documentary, not with this photo, but seeing how Maddux looks now, have either of you seen that show Bar Rescue?
Yes.
John Taffer? Greg Maddux looks exactly like John Taffer.
Huh.
A slightly less kind of bombastic, you know, large version of him, but like his face, I was like, wait, did they bring John Taffer in here to talk about Maddux? Oh, no, wait, that's Maddux. What the hell?
Funny. That's funny.
Ball. He was like
little shout out for all you Bar Rescue fans.
a little runt, but you're like, damn, he's good at everything. In high school, at 6 foot, he was dunking. Like, you're like, damn, he does this well too, you know.
My sophomore year in high school, right after the basketball season, we had our last game on Friday. One of my teammates goes, baseball tryouts are Monday, are you going to try out? And it was kind of like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, you go out in right field and you show off your arm, and, you know, I was surprised that it was pretty easy to throw the ball, you know, 300 feet. So that's kind of where it started, from that right there.
I remember the scouts used to come and watch us work out on Sundays, and we'd scrimmage.
These pickup games he played as a kid in Las Vegas on Sunday mornings. They would meet at a field. There was an old scout there called Ralph Madar.
I drugged my brother along one time. He started throwing, and Ralph said, wow.
Ralph said that movement and location is more important than velocity. He was teaching me how to pitch in the big leagues. He wasn't teaching me how to pitch in high school. He was teaching me how to pitch beyond that.
And so he learned early on that moving the baseball was more important than throwing it hard.
That's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like that young to get that advice.
Yep.
And not only receive that advice, take it. Because
Yes.
if you can throw hard back then, you would show it off. This guy's
It's still
just
the way
like,
they do
oh,
it.
what's that?
Still the way they do it.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, different world now. Different world now.
Even though back then, like, I mean, I doubt they were as protective of growing arms as they are now, where don't they like try to limit, like based on what age you are, like how hard you throw or what type of like pitches?
How many pitches?
Yeah.
Whether or not you can throw a curveball. I mean, he was in high school, so they probably let him at that point. But yeah, I mean, they're really restricted now.
So for him to be able to, though, kind of pick up on, well, you don't have to just air it out all the time, where you'd probably feel really inclined to want to do that when you're younger too, right? Because that's when you're feeling maybe stronger, but to already know, like, well, it's actually more about location and
Huge.
yeah, and which pitch selection in the moment that's more important. Yeah.
I knew absolutely nothing about baseball, nothing. And people would talk like, oh yeah, he's really good. I didn't know what that meant. Originally, my best friend liked Greg and pointed him out to me. And I'm like, oh, well, that kid's pretty skinny. I can remember my first thought.
We met at a party. I was hungry. She was really good looking. And so I asked her to go eat.
We had our first date at a Mexican place. He says he doesn't remember ordering a hamburger, but I know he for sure did. Yeah, started kind of going to some of his games and just kind of grew from there.
I knew at that time, little brother was like really good. And all of a sudden it was like, you quit playing the other sports and just focus on baseball and chasing a dream. 84 draft came around and the Cubs were drafting like third.
The day of the draft was the day of our class trip. We were going to go to Hawaii. And the draft.
Look at those computers.
Dude. State of the art.
Yeah.
Hell of a class trip, by the way.
Yeah, no, what the hell? What kind of school is this?
Vegas. Yeah, let's just go to Hawaii.
It was going to start about an hour before I took off for that flight. There was talk that I could go in the first round, so, I thought, well, okay.
Chicago Cubs.
Chicago Cubs select 0965.
I remember being at the airport, calling home, and did I get drafted? And they said, no, you didn't get drafted.
I remember they picked Drew Hall, strapping left-hander out of Kentucky. 6'4", left-handed, sure. You're 5'11", you weigh $145. No, I don't think so. We're gonna bet on the 6'4" guy,
Okay, that concludes the first round. We're gonna pause for a moment right now.
Hopped on the plane, went to Hawaii. When I landed, I called back home and they said, yeah, you got drafted in the second round. The Cubs took you. Enjoy your 5 days in Hawaii on your class trip, and you could report when you get back to the States. Well, first time away from home. I was 18. You go from Vegas to Pikeville, Kentucky. I mean, it's a pretty drastic difference. We stayed in the dorms, and I was like baffled that there was no place to eat at 9 o'clock at night. Everything was closed.
Talk about a
Jim
shock.
Ferry was our first manager, and he was from the South, had the Southern Alabama accent, and he would always like start every sentence off, listen up, all right, y'all suck, okay? Ain't none of you good enough to get to the big leagues, so you better get the names and addresses, everybody, because half you mother aren't going to be around here next year.
Tonight. So that reminds me. You guys know who Trevor May is?
No.
So he was a pitcher for a while. He recently retired. He pitched for Minnesota. That's who he started with. He pitched for the Mets. He pitched for the A's. He actually has a YouTube channel too, which is great. And he was talking about he goes through watches movies or talks about what's real about the movies in the big leagues.
Mm.
And he was talking about Major League.
Mm.
And he also talked about Bull Durham and how the managers would talk to the players, specifically in the minors. And it's very colorful just exactly how Maddux is explaining it. But to hear him wax poetic about how, in Bull Durham, if you remember when they throw the bats into the shower to try to spice things up and start swearing at everybody, he's like, that absolutely happens. That absolutely happens. Yeah.
So Trevor May is the guy?
Yeah, Trevor May. Huh. Yeah, check him out. It's a good. He does a good job.
WTVP Channel 47 in Peoria, and a big welcome to all of you watching in on WQPT Channel 24. And setting the fielding for you, get a look at Greg Maddux, the starting pitcher.
Big bonus, Sonic bonus guy, and everybody's anticipating to see this Greg Maddux, and I think his physical stature shocked everybody. A little over 6 feet and maybe 160 pounds, maybe, but he pitched just like he did in the big leagues. Got the ball and threw strikes,
First pitch from Greg Maddux. There's a good fastball that goes in there for a called strike. Maddux works quick. Swung on, ground ball.
He was just able to put it wherever he wanted to put it,
At the outside corner for a strike. The first strikeout of the night for Greg Maddux.
Very quiet. And he's pitching great. He's by far and away the best pitcher on that staff.
I love baseball, but I hated being away from home. That was a huge adjustment for me right there.
We're riding on crappy buses. People aren't really, we're not friends. We're 24 guys drafted and nobody knows anybody.
We talk on the phone for 3 hours at a time, and he was just like, man, this is rough. It's lonely. It's hard. You're fitted for yourself.
It was basically, I'm going home. And I said, why? Why?
Can you imagine if he was just like, deuces them out?
Yeah. Sliding doors moment, right? Like it'd be interesting to, like, I imagine both of his parents are probably passed at this point, but I'd be interested to hear like what the conversation with his parents was like. Like if it was just a simple cut and dry, like, you're staying.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, oh, it's okay. Like, what if there was a little more of like, oh, it's all right. And it sounds like his future wife was pretty good at kind of like holding firm with him.
Reeling him in.
Yeah. Because she could have, talk about a great woman, knowing that, what was ultimately good for him. I'm sure it was probably hard for her to have him away from her. So it could have been easy for her to just be like, yeah, come back. I miss you. But she was able to encourage him to stay there. So thank goodness she did. Thank goodness he stayed.
And we've already seen a few of these little moments, right? With, the scout kind of being like, hey, don't throw it too hard. Just learn them how to pitch, how to control.
Mm-hmm.
And then the buddy after the basketball season said, hey, you gonna try for baseball? Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, sure. Now that you say it, sure.
Yeah.
That may never have happened. So there's been a few of these moments already that kind of changed the course.
It was basically, I'm going home. And I said, why?
I hated being away from home for the first time, really homesick.
He was having a rough time, and he called me up, and I said, well, you're going to stick around, right? And he goes, we'll see.
You knew he was kind of just right on the fence.
I wanted him to not quit because he was homesick. If you're brutal and you're getting just killed out there, well, maybe, but that wasn't the case, so.
One of the older guys, Bob Mandeville, took me in.
I'm like, Greg, you can't quit. You got a great career ahead of you.
He made the downtime more fun. We started playing cards together. This might be a mistake, throwing that hand away. Wasn't as homesick anymore. Started enjoying being around the guys, making new friends, teammates. It was just kind of a grown-up experience for me, probably more so than anything.
Had to be a learning process for you.
Well, I learned a lot. I pretty much learned how to live. You have to adapt to your new environment. And I learned all the do's and don'ts.
I was in AAA at the end of the year, and, I had a pretty good summer, and, I kind of expected to get called up.
In 1986,
who hit shutout in Nashville. Pretty impressive.
He gets called up in September after being very good in the minor leagues, and he's only 20 years old.
Chico Walker got called up with me.
Well, I feel real good.
Me and Chico were going to drive up to Chicago. We get about 20 minutes away from the stadium. And, you know, Chico goes, hey, man, I forgot my wallet. So I'm like, damn. So that sucks. So turn around.
God damn it, Chico.
And I get pulled over for speeding. It's my first ticket. And, you know, I'm nervous. Cop pulls you over. You're 20 years old. And he writes me the ticket. And Chico goes, damn. I'm like, what? He goes, my wallet's right here. So I turned around, got a ticket, and then we turned back around and went to Chicago.
I feel like that's something that would happen. Like 100%. You think you're doing everything right, then it's unnecessary.
And you're all nervous. You want to make sure you get there on time and all that, and
Right.
something like that happens.
One of the softest throwing pitchers, too, gets a speeding ticket.
Right. That's funny.
This mustache is complete big.
I was just going to say that.
I mean, that's a handsome stash right there.
That is big league.
Mm-hmm.
Slipped right by, you know, I mean, and here I am. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything better right now.
I'm Rick Sutcliffe, and I was there for Greg Maddux when it all began.
And there you look at the starting pitcher, Greg Maddux.
The youngest Cub to come up in 20 years.
Honestly, when he came up to the big leagues in '86, my first impression was, I mean, he's just a goofy kid.
Rollo, were you around, or are you still just sperm and eggs?
I was around. I was 3 years old, or almost 3.
All right.
I guess that's veteran humor, you know.
First start was pretty cool. Grew up a huge Reds fan. Sure enough, I got my first start in Cincinnati.
Well, a child shall lead them. Greg Maddux was 20 in April.
One of the coolest things in that game was Pete Rose was player manager back then. And that was one of the guys I idolized as a kid. And he put himself into pitch hit against me in the 8th inning. He hit a one-hop missile. Exit velocity was probably 90, 95 in today's terms.
I really had never.
So he said it was pretty cool. One of the things that wasn't cool, by the way, was those Cub uniforms. These are atrocious.
Super terrible.
But again, not to beat the Pete Rose thing, you know, one of the greatest pitchers of all time talks about how in his first start he got to face him. Shows the significance, even him as a player coach, which is a very controversial time for Mr. Rollo.
Seen anybody that getting outs looks so easy.
Ground ball, they're going to give one a lead. Cubs win. And everybody congratulating the 20-year-old kid. In his first start in the big leagues, he not only wins, but pitches a complete game.
You know, we're going to see Greg Maddux's older brother by a year, I think it is. Mike pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies Tuesday.
Mike got called up that same year in '86, so it was this interesting rivalry, even though Mike was a couple of years older.
That first one was, you know, historic. You know, it's never happened before, you know, that rookie brothers oppose one another.
Maddux has a brother, Mike Maddux, with the Phillies, and Greg and Mike faced each other.
It was not fun pitching against him.
Another beautiful show stash.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Mike kept his, though. Mike kept it.
Because, you know, this guy you've pulled for your whole life.
I was nervous as hell. I ain't gonna lie to you.
We had faced each other 1,000 times in the backyard. And then to have the opportunity to do it, you know, on a big league field was pretty cool.
He's out there pitching, and it's like I'm watching him throw a little league game.
There's a strike call, a fastball.
Look at him. He's out there dominating.
Yep, I do. It wasn't him, put it that way.
He comes up, he pitches pretty well.
Mad dog, yeah, baby.
And then in '87, he's in the rotation. He's on the team coming out of spring training. and he really struggles.
Greg Maddux in trouble again. Strawberry hits it high and deep to left. A 3-run home run for Darryl Strawberry, and the Mets now lead it 7-0.
And Herm Starrett out on the run to talk with his troubled youngster Greg Maddux.
He got sent down to the minor leagues, came back up and struggled even more.
It seems like the world is falling in on Maddux. Everything he does is wrong at this point.
There's some question now. This is real failure.
You really need the respect of your teammates. I wasn't pitching good enough to get any respect.
All right, so this part of it, this is when I get a little bit salty and I start thinking about, you know, the Trastros or the steroid guys, right? Because he's going to redeem himself here, but it's not by pitching well. And I feel like there's a lot of guys who go through these struggles facing either people who are cheating the game or, you know, performance enhancing. And some of these guys never get another shot. Right?
Yeah.
They never get that call up after. So this scenario could have went so different too.
It is interesting to me
would...
though that he, I feel like that is something that happens a lot where a guy flashes young and it's almost like some of these guys have like they don't know any better. Like they're just going in there and they're like almost kind of like loose in a way where they're just kind of like they're just doing what they do and they're riding on their talent that they clearly have to have ascended to the big leagues at a young age. But then once other teams get a book on a guy, they maybe know how to approach him a little bit more than how they did when they've never seen him before. And I think that's, you know, one of the real strengths of Maddux was he was a studier himself. So I think obviously, as we'll see later on in this documentary, that he kept learning and he didn't let this get him down too much.
Are you trying to say this game's mental?
Just a little bit.
Was able to do something that, you know, maybe I got a little bit of respect from my teammates.
Well, Greg Maddux was pitching that day, and he'd been told before the game that if he doesn't win, he's going back to the minor leagues.
This was the big
I
thing
remember
that
Eric Shaw was pitching.
What's that,
like
Taylor?
where he protects his player.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is the spot.
And hit Andre right in the face.
Whoa! Hit by a pitch ball. Oh, boy, look at Dawson.
You know, Hawk was our main guy. I remember him laying right there on home plate, kind of knocked out, and then he came to and, you know, spit a bunch of blood on the plate, and then he started looking for Eric Shaw.
He's on his feet. Now he's looking for Chow. He's looking for Chow.
It was a pretty good brawl.
Real good suction hitting Chow. They're trying to keep him away. Look at this. Andre's going into the dugout after him.
God bless baseball brawls.
You know, those 70s and 80s brawls, though.
Oh, yeah.
They were something else. You know? It wasn't necessarily the Pirates and Reds, you know, of a few years back, but yeah, this was some stuff. You know?
That's great.
Yeah. But this is a redeeming point for him, right? Who knows if he doesn't follow through with this, if they have him back.
Yeah.
Interesting, Harry, is when Greg Maddux goes out, what he will do.
They can kick him out of the ballgame now.
And it's a dilemma because it's a 4-2 game. He has not qualified for the win.
And I said, hey, here's what you're doing. You're going to go get 3 outs. You're going to get the win. And then in the 6th inning, you do whatever you want. And he looked at me and he went, no. He goes, I'm hitting the first guy. I said, if you don't go get 3 outs, they're going to send you to the minor leagues. And with tears in his eyes, he said, I don't care if I ever get another win. And I'm getting goosebumps right now. I can still see his face.
Now we'll see what Greg Maddux does. Santiago's hit by a pitch, and he is ejected. Here we go again.
He hit him. He got sent down to the minors, and I think he had the minimum 15 days or whatever it was. He was back in the big leagues, and he never saw that minor league bus again after that.
I certainly would have lost a ton of respect if I didn't hit anybody. That was way more valuable than any win I could have ever gotten.
So what Greg Maddux might have lost today, in the long run, might have helped him as far as the view his teammates held toward him.
I don't know what it meant to everybody, but I know what it meant to Andre Dawson. And there was a day Greg Maddux was pitching against Nolan Ryan, and a couple of our big boys weren't in the lineup. Hawk grabbed a Sharpie and wrote their names in the lineup.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that happened.
Everybody in the clubhouse knew that Hawk was just trying to do something, repay Greg for standing up for him.
That's badass.
Yep.
That's badass. I like that shit.
In spring training of 1988. He came up to me and he says, "Hey, I don't want you to be disappointed in me." And I go, "What? Never. What are you talking about?" He goes, "But I'm seeing a sports psychologist." And I went, "Why?"
I mean, how much of this game is mental? Back then I'm thinking, well, what am I doing mentally to improve myself? If the mental side of this game is over 60%, I mean, shouldn't I spend 60% of my time practicing the mental part of the game?
Pioneer.
Genius.
As far as this goes.
Genius,
I mean,
and like it's like he's like the perfect cross section of cocky, but like humble in a weird way. Like he knows what he still needs to work on, but he's not so humble that he's like doesn't like put himself out there and like know that he's the shit in some respects.
Yeah.
It's a really fine line to walk, but he walks it.
It's funny too because I almost feel like he's humbly cocky.
Yeah,
like he's not braggadocious about it, right?
Right.
But that almost makes him come across as more cocky.
Like he's just kind of like it's just matter of fact. Like this is what it is.
Like we know how great he is, and we have a sneaking suspicion that he does as well.
Yeah.
But he's probably not going to tell you.
Right.
You do that when you win 355 games.
Indeed.
Right. Yeah. But I love this. Right. So now not as entrenched as you two, but having worked in the mental health field, to have somebody with this greatness and have the foresight of 1988 to think, hey, I'm going to hire a sports psychologist.
Well, and this is the thing. Cockiness typically precludes insight. If you're too confident, if you're too cocky about it, well, I'm the shit. I don't need, what's this guy going to teach me? Like, I just got to keep doing my thing. But, that would have blocked him. It's another inflection point in his career that would have blocked him, potentially, from getting to the heights that he got to by just taking a step back and saying, I can still get better. Let me figure out how. Let me talk to other people.
No grandiose delusions for him.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, it's funny too because I think, talk about somebody who's coachable, right? Where I mean, he took some advice from a scout when he was in high school, and changed the way he pitched and learned a different game. He was influenced by his loved ones to stick through it. He was influenced by the amount of thought that his teammates, and what they would have considered him had he not retaliated for what happened to Dawson. And now he's seeking out advice for something that, by all accounts, may be taboo for somebody in that time frame, or seen as a weakness. And I mean, that's phenomenal. And I think this part of it, I think, shows just how cerebral he was,
Mm-hmm.
and how much he cared.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The biggest thing that I probably learned was just worry about the things that you can control. At the time, I wasn't doing that. I was worrying about what the coaches thought, what the fans thought, what my friends thought. So I just kind of...
And you know what the funny thing is? That's exactly what I just said. That he was so in tune to what everybody else was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and it influenced how he played. But now he's saying, "I got to shut that shit off."
Mm-hmm.
kind of reshaped my focus on what are the things I can control.
And Darryl takes strike 3.
During that stretch of time, he was learning. He was just going to work. You know, in jazz, they call that woodshedding.
Greg Maddux on the mound for the Cubs.
They struck him out.
Maddux, a tough pitcher. He's won 6 in a row on 8 of his last 9 decisions.
And the fans responding to 22-year-old Greg Maddux.
Those were his years of figuring out who he was and what he was about.
What's the biggest difference between the Greg Maddux of 1987 and the Greg Maddux right now?
Well, I think I developed some confidence in my breaking ball and my changeup, how to throw it and maybe when to throw it, and I think that's probably been the biggest difference this year.
From the Chicago Cubs, pitcher Greg Maddux.
I remember walking in the locker room. I was next to Dwight Gooden, and that was pretty cool because at the time he was the best pitcher in baseball. And I heard him fart. How about that? I heard Doc Gooden fart.
One of the greatest pitchers of all time. Decides to share a story about his first All-Star game. And the story he decides to tell is how he heard Doc Gooden fart.
He tells a few kind of a few stories that are rather unassuming in the way that he tells them, but are really just like, really? Is that what happened? Okay.
Not to psychoanalyze the boy a little bit more, but could be a little Asperger's in here.
Where like there's like just a little like something where he's not quite picking up on what like some social norms are, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, especially in the shower. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
In 1989, Greg's our best pitcher.
He has also, in the last 2 years, become one of the finest pitchers in the major leagues.
And this team looks like they're destined for the playoffs.
It seemed like Cubs winning seasons, as few as they were, came out of nowhere. Almost like a spring rainstorm. All of a sudden, there's a cloudburst. There's a cloudburst of wins for the Cubs. And to have Maddux, a homegrown starting pitcher, at the front of the rotation that way was just completely embraced by Cubs fans.
Cubs win the division! Cubs win the division!
Greg Maddux, the man who won number 19 tonight. How did that feel to you? Winning? The whole thing.
Good. I mean, it's good. I think we accomplished something that I don't think many people thought we were going to accomplish.
We don't make the playoffs in '89 without him. I mean, that would have been a long, dry run for the Cubs without Greg Maddux.
It's a great year for you. A great year for you. We wouldn't have done it without him.
Oh, it's terrific, wasn't it?
You're looking at the intersection of Clark and Addison, where absolute pandemonium has broken out.
Good. Let them enjoy it. Let them have fun. We're having fun here.
Wrigley Field alive with enthusiasm and emotion. A jam-packed crowd.
And tonight's starting pitcher warming up in the bullpen, number 31, Greg Maddux.
In the 1989 playoffs, Greg Maddux actually, sort of without even trying, creates an entirely new trend in baseball.
And Will Clark will be the batter with the bases loaded.
It's a key situation. The catcher's going out, and Will Clark's reading his lips, and Will Clark sees him say something like inside fastball. An inside fastball's coming. So he knows the pitch is coming.
High drive into deep right field. It is a grand slam home run.
I thought I made a decent enough pitch to get him out, but it carried over the fence anyway. You know, later on you hear the stories, oh, he read my lips. He said he read I was going to start him off with a fastball or something. You know, that's kind of the reason why you see, even today, you'll see guys cover their mouths or put their gloves up when they talk on the mound.
Another pivotal point.
Something as simple as like, hide my mouth. It's kind of one of those things that's so ingrained in watching the game now that I didn't really stop to think like, when did that start?
Yeah, when was the origin?
Done that?
I don't remember that at all. When Will Clark hit that. Well, I remember Clark hit the grand slam, but I don't remember the story about him. Well, I remember it now from seeing it, but I don't remember it like from the time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, and it's funny, and one of the things, and not to, you know, kind of brush past this, but I don't want to stop it again. Talking about how he has to, you know, make this just about what he can control.
Mm-hmm.
To see the fever of the Chicago Cubs fans and know their history, and this is their opportunity to, you know, potentially get a World Series, and having the hindsight of what Boston was like. Talk about probably another franchise that could put that pressure on you and having that weight on your shoulders to pitch in this game as what, a 22-year-old at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty nuts. Right? But yeah, so yeah, the origin of the cover the mouth is pretty awesome. And I wonder who picked up on that. You know, if that's something that Will Clark shared, and that's how they found out.
Yeah. It's a good question.
It was just a gut blow to lose the way we did in the playoffs. As great as the year was and as much success as we had during the whole season, just going home left kind of a sour taste in your mouth.
To me, the early Greg Maddux is a fascinating thing because you can actually see development year after year after year.
And that pitch called strike 3. Swing and a miss, down he goes.
Struck him out.
It was kind of utopic for me to sit there and just watch him become the best pitcher in the game.
Greg Maddux has been the best pitcher in the National League over the last 5 years.
Maddux could possibly be the Cy Young Award winner.
It was a huge story because he wins the 92 Cy Young, and now he's at his peak, and of course that's right when he goes into free agency.
So this is where we pick
up. At the All-Star break, the Cubs offered me a 3-year deal. I remember saying, I just made the All-Star team. It's got to be worth a little something more now, right? And they said, well, you've never won 20 games or the Cy Young, so we can't pay you more money. So I said no. First day of free agency, the Cubs made me an offer. Sure enough, it was the same offer they made at the All-Star break, and kind of brought up the, well, you said I never won 20 games or a Cy Young. That's why you can't pay me more. Well, I just did it. And they said no. Then I knew it was time to find another place to play.
At some point along the way, it seemed that the Cubs were cooling on him, which is, they'll never live that down.
Stupid Cubbies.
His agent was Scott Boras, and I think as we've seen, these Boras clients get on the market at 26, 27, it's going to be an auction.
How many clubs do you have to wonder will pursue Greg Maddux?
They brought us in a room and put us all around a table. And Ted Turner, the owner of the Atlanta Braves, he come and go, well, now, fellas, he goes, we got one big bullet to shoot, you know. And we're all sitting there going, yeah, that means one free agent has signed one big contract. And they said either Maddux or Bonds. And, of course, they asked me, and I said, well, I'm going to take Maddux. I'm a pitching coach, for crying out loud. It came down to Bobby Cox.
Just Maddux, just Maddux.
Bobby said if we added him, to the starting rotation that we already had in place, we'd never have a losing streak.
Other teams started jumping in. The Yankees seemed to be the favorite at one point. They came in with the most money, as the Yankees will.
Can you imagine what that would have done to the history of the Yankees had they had him starting in 93?
Yep.
For the next 10 years.
It's wild. But, it's interesting, too, that it reminds me of Randy Johnson when he went to the Yankees and how he didn't quite work at the Yankees. And I know he was later in his career, so he wasn't quite the same pitcher as he was in his peak. But I do also think that not enough professional athletes take into account the fit of going to a certain place. They're just looking at the money, which, I don't begrudge them. If they want to get every last penny, all right. But is it what's worth it to risk you maybe being kind of miserable? And it sort of felt like Randy Johnson was miserable in New York. And I wonder if it would have been interesting to see if Maddux, because his rationale that I think he gets into was that he would have to develop a whole new book on all the hitters that he had developed pitching in the National League. I'm sure he would have been able to do the same eventually over the next few years in the American League, but I wonder if he would have just been able to roll with it and get acclimated in New York, or if it would have been a little too intense for him.
Well, and not only that, fast forward just a few more years, and now all of a sudden you have interleague play.
Right. Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Had
he wanted to pitch in National League.
Yeah. And imagine if his free agency came, interleague was active.
Yeah.
May not have gone the way that it did, but yeah, he wanted to stay in the National League.
The Yankees looked like they were going to win the bidding. In fact, they did win the bidding.
Yeah, went to New York and thought I was going to be a Yankee.
But there's one thing nagging at him. Greg had only pitched in the National League and had this great institutional memory and knowledge of facing National League hitters.
It's more about where than how much at the time. I knew the National League. I knew all the hitters. Atlanta had just went to the last 2 World Series. They had a good young staff. They were going to keep winning, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Greg's major goal of free agency and reaching it and pursuing it was to put himself in the best position to win a world championship.
And I asked Scott, I go, Scott, do your Scott shit and do the best you can for Atlanta. That's where I want to play. So I got on the plane, and by the time I landed in Vegas, 3 hours later, I had a deal with the Braves.
I remember I literally was in bed. It was late at night, and the news came across that we got Greg. And I sat up, and I'm like, we just got a whole lot better.
We've had a great winter. I think the signing of Greg Maddux made a big difference for our ball club. He's always been rated, if not the top pitcher in the National League, he's been right there. So it's a great staff. It's a lot of fun to run a quality starter out there night after night.
They had went to the last 2 World Series, and half the rotation was already on the All-Star team. It seemed like a no-brainer for me.
We had established ourselves as young pitchers, but that was the over-the-top move because it just took us to another level.
Well, I want to go out there and do the best that I can do. I'd love to help this team win the World Series. I mean, you can't pitch in October by yourself. You need some help, and this team has as much help as anybody.
One of my first practice sessions with him, he was wide left and wide right, and I'm going, and I'm watching, and not saying a whole lot, trying to just watch him and learn. And he looked at me and he goes, "What'd you think of that session?" And I said, "Well, to be honest with you, I didn't think it was very good." He goes, "I didn't either." And he left, And he come out the next day, didn't miss his target one time, hit it every single time. He did that on purpose. I guarantee you, he wanted to know if I was going to be a pitching coach, like any 99% of the others would have told him, oh, don't worry, it's the first day. We're just getting loose, blah, 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 you know. But I told him the truth. I think we hit it off after that.
Opening day, Greg Maddux. Doesn't sound too unusual, except today he's in the Atlanta Braves uniform. And Greg, how do you feel coming back in the uniform of the enemy?
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited about pitching opening day. It is a little awkward for me.
What an interesting schedule choice, too, by the way.
Yep.
He gets the opening day start in Chicago.
Yeah, that was a trip. You know, sure enough, we go back to Chicago for opening day, and you know, I remember waking up before the game, and you know, you look at the paper, and it was like 10 reasons to boo Maddux. You know, I had been made out to be money hungry, didn't care about Chicago, didn't care about the fans. You know, that was kind of the furthest thing from the truth.
To be honest, he was still bitter, and I get it. I mean, I totally get it. Like, that was his team.
Greg Maddux, maybe the first time in his career, hearing boos like this.
You try not to let it get too personal, but
You see the Wayne's World influence? We miss Maddux, not.
Oh, yeah.
It was hard. I mean, it was hard. First time I ever got booed, but talk about really wanting to win a game.
Back to the mound, could get two. There's one. There's.
That is an underrated. And I say underrated, but I think they say like he won, I don't know how many Gold Gloves in a row, but
he was an amazing fielder.
So that was the thing that blew my mind. They didn't say that until the very end of this documentary. He won 18.
That's so ridiculous.
What I'm curious about too, because I remember that too, and when I was watching like all these clips of him delivering, how much of his motion, how much of his delivery is just like that's just how he happens to land, and how much of it is he deliberately worked on like setting himself the way he does after he releases to be in like that prime position field, because you know some pitchers are like falling off the mound as they're throwing so hard, and they're just not in a great position to you know make a play on the ball. But Matt,
I'm sure that's a huge part of it.
He's always just like boom, he's always like there ready in the way that Greco always is when I see him out in the field.
Thank you. Yeah, not anymore. I'll tell you what, like, you know, for him to be as cerebral as he is, I wouldn't put it past him. And the other piece of this, I mean, we're going to see it later on, but I mean, he's, you know, not only is he holding the book of what, you know, these players hit, what they don't, but he has a fairly educated guess as to where they're going to hit said pitch when he throws it. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's already thinking, hey, this thing's going to come to me. I got to be ready.
Good point.
The wind was blowing in, and it was the perfect pitching atmosphere at Wrigley Field.
Struck him out.
The way Maddux is throwing, the Cubs have their work cut out for them.
You could tell it was personal.
Line drive, easy out. He swung at another bad ball. 3-2. Struck him out. Boos or no boos, Maddux.
I gotta get my charger. I'll be right back.
Pitched a shutout, which is pretty much all he did every year, 8 innings of shutout ball.
You know, you try not to let it get too personal, but yeah, that was a tough game for me. I was probably one of the best wins I've ever had personally.
Basically, it started a 3-year run of, you know, unprecedented baseball.
Here's the 1-2. Struck him out. A 1-2-3 inning for Greg Maddux with a couple of strikeouts.
Watch this guy work and you just shake your head.
The best free agent signed in the offseason by any team in the major leagues.
No argument here.
He comes to Atlanta, blends in, and just continues to do his thing.
It's just ground ball after ground ball after ground ball.
Greg was one of those guys. When he pitched, it was fun to watch. It was intriguing to watch, to see what he did and how it worked and why it worked.
How could the Cubs let this guy go? Got it. What a job. He's the best, folks. He is the best.
I'll tell you what, the Braves made a big investment in him, but he is quickly paying dividends.
He's pitching at the top of the rotation for one of the best teams in baseball. He was the stopper of losing streaks. He was the extender of winning streaks.
There is the best pitcher on the planet. He is a treat to watch operate.
He was completely magical on the mound in the sense of he was throwing the same baseball as everybody else, but it did different things for him.
I'll still recall the 19-2 season. Nobody could touch him.
Line drive back to Maddux.
In the era that we pitched, he was almost perfection. I remember one time he spoke to our pitchers in spring training, and he looked at them all. He goes, "You know why I'm a millionaire?" He said, "Because I can throw my fastball where I want to." He says, "You know why I got beachfront property in L.A.? Because I can change speeds." So then you looked at the pitchers and you said, "Fellas, it's not, not rocket science here."
He saw baseball in a way that other players and pitchers never did. He had a great line that the job of a pitcher, make the balls look like strikes and the strikes look like balls. Nobody ever did that better than Greg Maddux.
That is clearly not a strike.
Yeah. How many ugly swings have we seen? I mean,
so many.
Or just no swing.
He makes so many people look so stupid.
Yeah. Making the balls look like strikes and the strikes look like balls.
Mm-hmm. Well, and isn't that one of the old adages? I forget who it's attributed to. It was just kind of referenced there that there's no more effective pitch in baseball than a well-placed fastball.
Yep.
And that if you can do that, everything else kind of takes care of itself, which is kind of what he said next about changing speeds, because you can't really change speeds unless you get that fastball, and the fastball you can reliably kind of place it where you want it. And his control was just impeccable.
Yeah. Hardest pitch to hit. Change up.
Interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm.
About 5-6 feet in front of the plate.
He wanted your catcher to align his body, the center of his body, on the corner. If it's a borderline strike, they're going to call it a strike. He said, so we need to create an illusion.
This is home plate. He can move the ball in this corner. He can come like this and like that. In the other corner, he can go like this and he can go like that.
I like to tell people, I never saw Van Gogh paint, but I saw Greg Maddux pitch. And that's what it was like.
Watch this ball move.
You're watching an artist at work.
When Greg Maddux gets ahead of you, you will see some
that Verducci guy must be some kind of writer.
He kind of waxes poetic, So I'm gonna bring up Trevor May again. So he did a thing where people asked him the worst umpires, and he purposely showed some pretty awful calls, and it was particularly in a Greg Maddux game where one of his no hitters that he threw in 77 pitches.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But he got so many of the benefit of the call.
Mm-hmm.
So the umpire was way off the plate on a couple of them. And it's because he earned that. Like, he worked it from the beginning of the game, and he ended up just spreading that strike zone, like, throughout the game, where it just widened and widened and widened.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was able to kind of manipulate not just the strike zone, but manipulate the umpire, too.
Well, he references that in the sequence with Bonds that we'll see, where at one point he says, that's a strike to almost every other batter in the league, but not Bonds.
Yeah. Same.
Or it's like competing reputations there. Bonds also earned his strike zone as well. So it was like dueling strike zones. Yep.
100%. It's the game in the game.
Yeah.
Never saw so many hitters get so frustrated. You know, he made them frustrated.
He's a poker player. The way he calculates. I've never heard another pitcher talk about finding outs. He would say there are 27 outs out there. You've got to find those 27 outs.
It was just trying to understand how hitters see the ball, and then what can I do with the ball to try to trick them. If I'm going to throw a changeup, I know it's not worth it unless I've thrown a low fastball for a strike. I have no way to trick the hitter.
Yeah.
Kind of like, you know, you can't go fishing without bait. You got to bait the hook.
I think they have a fairly complicated set of signs that they go through.
I never told this to anybody, but
This is amazing.
Yep. I remember.
This is amazing.
call his own pitches.
I think it's pretty amazing how he did it. So how he caught the ball from Eddie determined what the next pitch was going to be.
When he threw that pitch, he go fastball away, fastball inside.
Tap his leg with his glove. That is assigned to Eddie Perez.
This is changeup. A cutter and curveball was this.
Nobody ever knew it. I mean, it was kind of brilliant.
They don't call him the professor for nothing.
It was a regular season game.
Now here's Gonzalez.
That blows my damn mind.
How freaking tuned in and mind meldy do you have to be with your catcher, though, for the catcher to just be like, because obviously he's not going to be super obvious about it, Maddux. Like, it's all going to be very much, you know, kind of like in the flow of just typical ticks that you might see a ball player do, but the catcher has to be paying attention to Maddux. Like, he can't afford to be like, oh, what did that guy say? Or like, oh,
yeah.
That noise?
Talking to the umpire about the previous pitch.
Yeah, right.
But I'll tell you, you know, so think about being the guy on second, thinking you get a signs.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and the catcher's just throwing down trash. It means nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I remember Eddie Perez being his personal catcher.
Mm.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And that impressed. I think that's one of the most impressive things to me about this whole thing. Because I don't think he ever even let the infield know.
Mm.
And so as an infielder, I'm usually watching to see what kind of pitch is coming so I can anticipate where, you know, are they going to be sped up? Are they going to be slow down? Which way is this thing going to be going? You know, is it going to be off speed? Are they likely to pull it? You know, where is this thing going? So it doesn't sound like the infield was hip to this either. So that's an impressive thing.
That's crazy.
As an infielder, you're going in blind behind Maddux, who throws a lot of ground balls.
At least, though, with Maddux, you know he works fast. And I've heard, you can tell me that it's helpful for the infielders if there's a quick worker on the mound because it just keeps you in the flow and keeps you from, like, kind of resting back on your heels a little.
It's so hard if it's a long I don't remember the name, but I remember when they introduced the pitch clock. It was a pitcher for, I want to say it was Houston. He pitched to one batter in the equivalent of a whole inning. With the pitch clock. And I'll tell you what, that used to be murder.
Jeez.
Murder.
Ugh.
He's got two runners on here.
And Bobby sent Leo out to tell Maddux that he wanted to walk Gonzalez. Louis Gonzalez hit Maddux pretty good. Doggy's like, nope, not going to do it.
He goes, what? He goes, give me two pitches. I think I can pop him up to third base.
He goes, I'm going to throw him a changeup down and away, first pitch. Then I'm going to throw him a cutter, middle in, and he's going to hit a pop-up to chipper. And we're going to get out of this inning. Leo just kind of looks at him, and he looks at the rest of us, and he goes, okay. And he turns around, and he walks back to the dugout. And I mean, you can hear Bobby's just, he's pissed, you know? So sure enough, he throws him change up down and away, ball one, cutter in.
Got under this one a little bit, pops it down the left field line.
And I'm standing underneath the pop-up, just thinking, you have got to be kidding me. Caught it, inning over.
Bobby and I looked at each other and went, unbelievable.
That's another ridiculous thing.
I obviously don't remember that specific moment of that specific game, so part of me was wondering as it went for Bob, I'm just like, don't drop this, Chipper. Like,
yeah, no shit.
Don't drop it.
Right? Yeah. I had one pitcher who did it frequently. And sometimes he was wrong, but a lot of times he was right. He would literally turn around, look at me as short, and say, and move me. And sometimes it would go right to me. Wow. I don't know how he did it, but he would be able, he could control when it got on the ground. He probably had the most, I say control on that. But I'll tell you what, when he left some pitches up, he was hanging out in the bleachers because he had great movement on his pitches down. But if they were flat and you left them up, specifically when he got tired, my man gave up the long ball.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it always amazed me. And I remember, like, when he first started telling me that, he's like, this dude was trying to tell me where to play? Like, you kidding me? And then after a few, like, hard backhands that I had to make, I'm like, okay. And historically, he was fairly good at predicting whether or not I should be in the left or the right, and if the ball was actually coming to me. So that always impressed me. By no stretch of the imagination is this dude ever going to be in the same breath ever again when talking about Greg Maddux. That was probably the most interesting thing that I saw personally that reminded me of this.
Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, the World Series to be played here for the third time in the last 5 seasons.
I think when you look at the 95 Braves, you're looking at the confluence of this great pitching staff and an offense as well that was just dynamic. I mean, the Braves' talent was probably at its peak at that point, and if it wasn't going to be 95, I don't know when it was going to be.
The Atlanta Braves, a team that's in the World Series for the third time in the last 5 seasons.
Taylor.
Yep.
And this could be a whole nother discussion. But we just saw Al Michaels.
Yep.
Your thoughts on him as a baseball play-by-play?
I like him. I do too. You know, obviously the game I remember him the most from, well, the event that I remember him the most from is the Olympics, but the baseball game I remember him calling the most is Game 5 of the ALCS in '86. He did a great job in that game.
I always wish he did more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like Costas.
Yeah, he's okay. Costa's okay. Yeah.
But I always thought that Al Michaels should do more baseball.
Yeah. Yep.
After you've been to the World Series a couple times, it doesn't take a lot as a player to start looking at it and realize that, you know, you're only going to get so many opportunities.
I think our first 8 World Series losses were all by 1 run. 95 was essential for us.
I mean, I remember that was my first World Series. I had watched their 2 World Series on the couch in Vegas. The nerves, the excitement, you're at a 10 nerve-wise. I mean, they don't get any higher than they could get.
Maybe the best pitcher of his time in the minds of many, Greg Maddux is on the mound tonight.
I remember being at that 95 World Series, and I remember writing that this was Greg Maddux's series. This was his stage, and he was facing a really, really great Cleveland lineup. So this was going to be the ultimate challenge for Greg Maddux, and he comes out in Game 1 and
some baby-faced legends right there.
Yep.
And essentially says, we're not losing the series.
12 straight sit down by the professor. It's a clinic.
The Braves win Game 1 on a superb pitching effort by Greg Maddux.
Game 1, I think, was obviously one of the most important games because we got to see firsthand just how potent and scary the Cleveland Indians lineup was. And Maddux showed you how to pitch to it. And the rest of the guys kind of followed along after that.
The team of the 90s has its world championship. They have been.
Hey, that was Worlds, right?
Yes. Yep.
Baseball's best team over the last 5 years. And finally, the one missing piece is in place.
I remember running out to the dog pile, and I know it might sound stupid, but we won state in high school, and we had a dog pile. And I remember going out there, dog piling with everybody, going, God, we did this in high school. This is cool. Now we're doing it on TV in the big leagues. There's cameras, and everybody knows about it. You felt like you really accomplished something. And, to share the success with, your teammates, coaches. Pretty cool, pretty special feeling.
What's going to prevent this team from being a dynasty? Certainly not their pitching staff.
There you go, man.
They'd interview us or talk to us about, the greatest rotations of all time, and that's not something that any of us thought about until somebody asked us about it.
Do you ever reflect on this rotation that you're a part of, possibly the greatest in history?
And then you'd kind of be like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess, it's cool to be in the conversation.
Because we're a part of this thing, we are going to be mentioned in that regard, and that's fun.
Like a lot of things, when you're away from it and reflect on it, you realize what a special time it was and how much fun it was.
I spent 11 years, half of my career with these guys, and you reflect back on all the good times we had together.
I wouldn't trade anything for what we went through. We got a chance to do something not a lot of people got to do, and it was really unique because we were 3 different people that did it.
They were the ringleaders of the mentality that we developed through the years where we walked on the field expecting to win. And Doggy was the ringleader of that.
Greg Maddux pitched a beauty here today.
Another masterpiece.
If he didn't execute a pitch that he had set up to work perfectly, I think the microphones around home plate heard his displeasure with himself.
He wanted that one.
I used to see the umpires do a double take thinking, is he yelling at me or is he yelling at himself?
He was a perfectionist.
I wanted to be consistent. I felt like my stuff was like everybody else's stuff, but if I could not make mistakes and outpitch the other pitcher, then I felt I could beat him.
Ball, strike 3. There's evidence of that control.
It's not a speed contest.
So that's a strike zone that a lot of people complain about too.
Yep.
That he just got the call on. So
it does stand out to me, and maybe this is why I was throwing just some tiny amounts of shade towards Glavine. Is it's actually ultimately a really admirable attribute on his part. There are a lot of pitchers of his caliber who was there first, who had been in the league longer. Technically, I think. When did he start? Oh no. Okay, so Glavine. So maybe that was part of it. Technically, I think Maddux entered the big leagues just a teensy bit earlier than Glavine, but it could have been easy for him to be like, "Hey, listen, you're number 2. This is my team." But what Smoltz right there just mentioned is that they keep calling him Doggy.
Mm-hmm.
he set the tone. He was the ringleader, and it. I mean, obviously Maddux earned that and kind of sounded like he stepped into it again with that nice kind of confidence but humility at the same time. But it could have been easy for Glavin to be like the hell you are, this is my team. But fortunately the three of them were able to, at least from all we could tell, coexist well and have a lot of success.
Yeah, I mean this rotation was savage.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I remember probably around this time, 97, 96, 98 specifically with the Bonds and Sosa ordeal. But the whole I don't know if you guys remember the commercial where it was like long ball, chicks love the long ball.
Yeah.
Right. And it
Melrose
was
Place.
it was the three of these guys hanging out around the bullpen or around BP, watching guys take BP, and Maddux sitting there with his damn glasses on, and they're trying to like figure out how they can take some at bats, and so they can get the chicks because chicks love the long ball.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the thing that shuts down the long ball is this three-headed monster that Atlanta had. And again, I mean, I don't remember how long or when Avery left, but Avery was no slouch.
No.
You know, another lefty coming out of there. Especially when a lot of teams didn't have two lefties.
Yeah, he won the MVP of the NLCS in '91 against the Pirates because he pitched 2 shutouts in that series. So it was interesting. You know, they skipped over when the Braves lost to the Phillies in the playoffs. And they won 104 games that year. And they were saying, because I remember Maddux getting clobbered in the deciding game. And they just said that, you know, I guess, well, from what I remember, the Braves won 104 games and the Giants won 103. So every game for like the last 2 months of the season was like a playoff game. And they were just burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times when you hear about these teams getting rest, it can be a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Or it can be a negative.
Gets too rusty sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, there's something to be said about continuously moving. And then, you know, all of a sudden you stop and that scar tissue starts to build up.
Yeah.
And it becomes hard to break it and kind of work it out. And, you know, it can show up after a week. It can show up after a month. But, you know, a lot of times 162 games is not a small task.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Grind.
And one of the things about baseball is, you know, starters, it's similar, but it's a little bit different. You know, if you train for a marathon, you know that you're going to be running for X amount of time at this pace and when you're going to be doing it. Baseball, you exert yourself when you don't know you're going to have to.
Yep.
And you go from 0 to 100% at any given moment. And that is really taxing on your body. So for some of these instances of those marathons, it can kick your ass. At the same time, the rest can also sometimes be worse.
Yep.
So, sorry, tangent. Not really something to do with Maddux, but you brought it up, and I figured I had to put my 2 cents in because I really do believe that you see some teams coming out flat, and it's not because they don't care. But after a long break, a lot of times that scar tissue will mess you up. So it hurts. I don't know if you ever had to deal with it, but it hurts.
Not from doing anything particularly athletic, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because you feel like you're running as fast as you were, but you realize you're just not getting there. And you're like, damn, what the hell's going on?
That's frustrating.
You know, you're facing Randy Johnson. You got to outpitch him. You're not going to throw it as hard as him, but you can outpitch him.
I'm Randy Johnson, and I don't pitch like Greg Maddux.
How would you describe Greg physically?
I love that they got him, by the way.
Yeah. I would just say that you wouldn't think that he's a pitcher, and that's okay because I don't look athletic. I'm just tall, you know. I mean, everybody thinks I play basketball, but I've always admired how he's pitched because it was the opposite of me. I was a power pitcher.
You talk about blowing somebody away. Nothing fancy from 6'10" Randy Johnson.
There was not very many people like him in the history of the game. Everybody kind of watched him pitch. You know, it was the Maddux factor, the way he pitched. He just made really good hitters look bad, and he didn't have to throw 95 to do that.
We all know that pitching is about deceiving the hitter. If you can make all 2 or 3 or 4 of your pitches look just like your fastball, then you're kind of on the right track.
I was
Those
watching
glasses
him,
are iconic.
how to set.
Like that, in my opinion, that's like Maddox's trademark is those glasses.
Almost like those military issue. Like, let's make them as dorky as possible.
Yes. It's like, yes. In case you didn't realize, I'm a pitching nerd.
Now, picture this face saying "Chicks dig the long ball."
Yeah.
Right, because that's exactly what I remember.
That's funny.
Set hitters up and what he was doing. I couldn't even fathom doing those things. It was like it's like a chess match.
We were regular season and we were winning like 8-0. It was easy game in the 8th inning, and he told me.
Another thing I love.
It's unreal.
This is the stuff that gives me so much more respect, and made this one of those things that I was like, hey guys, we gotta watch this. Because this is so cerebral and honestly unselfish. Like, talk about not trying to chase stats.
Right.
This is unselfish.
This is long game for the good of the team, ultimately. Yep.
Yeah.
Thing inside on Bagwell. Call everything outside. And I said, okay. I think it was somebody on. And he wants to go inside. And I go, okay, you know, it's your game. So I went inside, called inside, and Bagwell hit like 1,000-mile.
Way back.
And I was mad, and I was like, what are you doing? And he goes, they got a good team, we got a good team. We're gonna play them in the playoff. He's gonna wait for that pitch. 3 months later, we're in the playoff, bases loaded in the 7th. We threw 3 straight changes and struck him out. And I was walking to the dugout. He goes, hey! And I look at him. He said, you remember? 3 months ago, 2 months ago? And I said, no, I don't. He was looking for that pitch, the homer that he hit. And I was like, this guy. It's how smart he was.
This guy.
I love that.
That's awesome.
I love that. You know, it's funny. My wife loves baseball. She does. Really does. I bore her to death because I'll talk to her about every pitch. And to her, she's just kind of like, yeah, he just missed it. Or, oh, he didn't throw it in the strike. And I'm trying to explain that every pitch has a purpose. It's just whether or not it's executed. This is a wonderful illustration of that. That is unselfish and brilliant.
Setting up the batter.
Sacrifice the home run.
Yeah.
3 months ago. I'll give up those extra couple points in my ERA because we're winning anyway to set them up for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant.
Genius.
I think one of the great things about sports is rivalry. Muhammad Ali is not Muhammad Ali without Joe Frazier. Larry Bird is not Larry Bird without Magic Johnson, and vice versa. And Greg had Barry Bonds.
That's the heavyweight championship, the heavyweight bout everybody wants to see. You got one of the best pitchers of our era against the greatest hitter of our era.
Opposite field home run for Bonds.
Barry was the best hitter in baseball.
He is a .305 lifetime hitter against Greg Maddux, and he has hit more home runs off of Greg Maddux than any other pitcher he's faced in his career.
How many home runs did I give up to him?
We both gave him 9.
Was it 9?
But when you gave up the 9th, you said to me, he will never hit another home run off me the rest of his career. And I'm like, wow. And he didn't, because he said, I'll walk him. He said, I ain't facing him.
Bonds was the Maddux of hitters. His baseball intellect was off the charts. And it was amazing the way that he could wait.
This is the stuff that makes me sad that Bonds cheated.
Yeah. Like hearing him, because it undercuts how brilliant a hitter he was.
Yeah. It reminds me of Belichick.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yep.
It makes me sad.
Mm-hmm.
Completely unnecessary.
Yep.
Yeah. Seriously.
Wait and wait and wait. Get what he wanted and not miss it.
He hits it hard! He hits it deep! It is out of here!
Now become fit and then just look at the camera for a second and then have some company.
Look how much smaller he is.
He's much smaller. I do like, though, at one point where he's just going, yeah, I'm 60 years old. I don't remember this.
yeah, right. But I'll tell you what. So here's the deal. Even if he hit 50 home runs less in his career, his legacy without steroids would have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yep.
As much as I'm going to enjoy this part, he's a dope and an asshole.
Yep. That's the disclaimer.
Microphone on? Okay. I want to face the best, and Maddux was the best. Greg was the type of pitcher where you had to be perfect, and you had to accept what he gave you. And if you weren't willing to accept what he gave you, you were going to fail every time.
Strike 3 call, inside corner at the knees.
He was able to change speeds in a way to mechanically mess your swing up.
Bonds was out in front, and as soon as he cut his swing loose, he knew he was in trouble and had been fooled by the motion on Greg's delivery.
He was a genius. Probably one of the smartest pitchers I ever faced. Period.
Bonds has a good idea at how he goes about facing Maddux.
Almost like Maddux, Bonds' approach was built on a pitch-to-pitch basis and figuring out the odds and what's coming. Both Maddux and Bonds are thinking, can I outthink the other guy? It was the chess match between the batter and the pitcher.
98, I can't remember. I'm 60 years old. I can't remember back that far. This is when he was good.
And here comes Barry Bonds.
So, I mean, you know, first inning, it's kind of too early to pitch around somebody, so you're going to try to get him out.
Well, Bonds chased that first pitch.
Ooh, jam, fastball. What was that, 92?
Pretty good cutter that beat him. I'm feeling okay about throwing that pitch.
So he's going to try to float a changeup or some of that little floater away. Because he thinks I'm going to speed up because they jammed me.
The cutter beat him, so I thought he would speed up. I threw a changeup, and he spit on it.
That's his changeup.
Spit on it.
I mean, that's a pretty good changeup right there, and it was an easy take for him.
I didn't even try. I just knew it. And now we're playing chess. He knows he can't beat me inside.
Experience has taught me that he's probably looking in. Back then, I didn't know it.
And most of the time, I was always waiting for that 92 end back over the plate so I could catch him. And I'm just praying for it.
Bonds hits one high to right field and deep.
And there it goes. Can't come in the well twice, buddy. You just can't do it. And Greg knows, because I always have this saying, you cannot come in the penthouse without an invite.
I mean, that's a good pitch, believe it or not. It's an executed pitch, but obviously it's the wrong pitch to throw. That's one you got to put in the memory bank and try not to ever throw it right there again to him. I mean, he's the best in baseball, and you can't make it easy for him. That's the pitch he wants to hit. So you have to make him hit something other than that.
Go ahead.
I find it just really interesting, and it's a fine distinction that was a well-executed pitch, but it was the wrong pitch to throw.
Yep.
Because obviously, if a pitch gets crushed, it's not gonna look like a good pitch. but I trust Maddux would obviously say like, it was a shitty pitch. I missed my spot. If that's what he did, but the game of chess, he just made the move and he didn't realize he was going to get checkmated by the hitter in that respect, because he was waiting for it. And it's just it's amazing how it all just comes down to guessing right and being ahead of who you're facing.
Right. And I think that that pitch in a different sequence may have been the one. Right. And it's all about how you're setting them up. Now, one of the things that bothers me too is this relationship that they had. And granted, I wasn't watching a lot of Giants games or Braves games at this time. But the fact that Bonds did what he did kind of tarnishes it a little bit, but I wish I paid more attention. This heavyweight battle that was happening, right? It's kind of like those battles that Jeter and Pedro had, or the Ichiro Suzuki and Rich Harden, or Dallas Braden, who had great movement on his stuff. Like those type of things I used to pay attention to, but were freaking not even on the same fight card as Maddux and Bonds.
Yep. I mean, Maddux and Bonds, it's almost like how the NFL would hype up whenever Manning and Brady would face off. That's the sort of billing that it could have gotten if it was something that was a lot more, I don't know, if the baseball marketers had a little more sense, it would have been maybe pumped up a little bit more. But maybe again, this is the West Coast bias, or
maybe one of the parties wasn't a complete asshole.
That too. Yeah.
I think that was when I finally said, I got you now. There's nothing you can do now.
For several years in the National League, this was looked upon as the best pitcher in the league against the best hitter in the league matchup.
So August 6, 1999.
We know he's not going to bunt. He's just taking a strike and probably trying to mess with Chipper down at third base. Who knows?
And see, I'm trying to stay level with that. I'm really actually just trying to hit it through the hole, because you can't do anything with that pitch.
Kind of see his ass go out a little bit. Kind of know he's looking in. But one of my strengths is the two-seamer in, so I still have to throw that because that's what I'm good at.
Now the 1-2. And that just missed him.
That's his pitch.
That is what exactly we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That is a strike.
That is a strike. Absolutely is.
To everybody
Uh-huh.
except Ball.
Yeah. And see right here, I'm locked up. But he's a technician though, man. He's so great.
Probably a strike to the other 100 guys in the league, but not Barry.
That's a ball. He knows it, but that's okay.
That one missed. Eddie did a good job of selling it. He got Bobby in the dugout.
Bobby, I love him.
That's kind of funny. We used to love hearing Bobby scream in the dugout.
Maddux is a master at mixing speeds.
See, I rolled over it. And that right there is because he came back at me twice, he sped me up.
I'm just glad he hit it fair, you know? I mean, you make your pitch and you hope he doesn't foul it off or you have to throw another one.
He wins that battle. And that pitch, I should have went the other way.
I love that they illustrated in a bat that he didn't strike him out.
Right. Yep.
He just won the battle. And the battle wasn't getting a strikeout. It was getting to roll over on.
Well, and in that era of Bonds, holy crap, anytime you could just get him out, it was like an event. Like, what?
Yeah.
He didn't get a base hit or get intentionally walked or hit a dinger? What?
Yeah, well, no. And this is pre 2001, 2002 Bonds.
Oh, right.
Right. I mean, he was more of a pure hitter here and less of all or nothing kind of guy.
Right.
Bonds tonight has been intentionally walked and he's flied to left. First and third, no one out.
We kind of understood one another a little bit more. I think we both knew I wasn't going to pitch to him unless I had to.
He's not going to give up a big inning to me with a man on first base, and I have to be smart enough to understand that. And nobody is. You think you can get him, but you can't. He's not going to give it to you.
Strike at the knees, 0-1.
I threw a lot of first pitch fastballs away. That was one of my patterns, and you know, most hitters don't want to hit a first pitch fastball down and away.
Into the crowd, advantage Maddux. It's 0-2.
That's what I was trying to do. Stay back long enough to slap him through the hole. You can't hit him. You can't hit a home run off him. Not unless he comes in on me. He's got to come inside.
It's easy to say, oh, he's late on that. He's not late. That fastball's not beating him. He's looking in is why he's hitting it foul that way. And that's something, as you get older, you learn to read that better. You try to read every swing, every foul ball. So hopefully this is a two-seamer and not a cutter. Okay, good. I mean, I would hope I would throw him a changeup again, you know, just after seeing the last at-bats.
Still think you got to pitch him in and try to keep him from extending his arms.
Yeah, he took it again.
So now he wants to back me off to throw that guy again. I'm not going to lean. I don't care. I cover the plate with that bat just right there.
3-2. It was 0-2. Now it's full.
Now you just got to be a great hitter. If it's 3-2, anything can happen with him. Anything.
So I'm kind of noticing that he's not chasing it off the plate away. He's chasing it when it's on the plate and down. I need to get it more down there where he'll swing at it. And that's the one he fouls off and you're like, oh, now I got to make another pitch to him.
And it remains 3 balls and 2 strikes.
No, not that one. Okay.
Got me. Good pitch. I tip my hat to that one. You'll see me walk away like, you get it, brother. That ball was up, it was perfect, and I should have hit it.
Gabe's missed it. Sometimes you get lucky. Maybe he thought it was a high fastball. Who knows? He saw it up and recognized fastball, but I don't know why he missed that one, but glad he did. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, it was fun. He's great. That's
Thank
great.
you so much, Barry.
You got it.
Really appreciate it.
That's some awesome.
It reminds me too of how it's not just the movement and the placement of the pitch, but it's the deception and the delivery too. That the hitter's so locked in that obviously one of the things they're locked in on is what's the motion of the pitcher in the arm. And it seems like Maddux was really great at just that layer of deception too.
And the sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. The sequence, the repetition of motion, the arm slot, release point. I mean, what an amazing exchange between the two.
We'll play Expos. They brought his brother, Mike.
Brother Mike is going to take over for the Expos.
You know, I was hitting 8, and he was in behind me. He goes, sinker. Okay. You know, I cheat a little.
Did the drive to left. I don't think the park would hold it. This ball is out of here. What a big hit by Eddie Perez. It's 2-0 Atlanta.
He was like, "Way to go, good job." So after the game, they asked me, well, his brother told me that there was a sinker coming.
I always wonder how Eddie hit that pitch.
So they went and interviewed him, and he go, "Well, that's your brother." I said, "I don't care if it's my mom's pitching. I will tell my hitters what to hit because I want to win this game."
He walks the fine line between being one of the most intense competitors that you've ever played with, and then one of the biggest characters that you've ever played with, king of the practical joke.
You've gotten this reputation as this notorious prank.
I will say that I did not know this.
I didn't either.
Nope, me neither.
I just thought he was just super reserved. But this is outrageous.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I really don't.
Is this rated PG or G or?
You know, he do some stuff in the clubhouse that is, I don't think it's good for TV.
There's a couple I'm not going to tell you either. I have too much respect for Mad Dog.
Some of the things are funny unless they happen to you.
Some of those pranks are legendary.
You're not going to be disappointed.
They never mess with me much. I never mess with anybody.
Yeah, I would watch him.
I get this rap of all this stuff. I mean, don't make them up. There's a lot of made up stories.
No.
So if it has to be a real one.
This one hit pretty good.
I got a big base hit to win a ball game in the bottom of the 8th or something.
The young star of the Braves, Chipper Jones.
Can I just say, before we said, Chipper Jones is probably one of my favorite all-around players. Whether it's his defense, the fact that he uses switch hitting, the way the boy swang and the production was off the charts. I love the fact that he stayed in Atlanta for his career and that he's still a part of the franchise now. Amazing.
He's a really good dude. Yeah. Great player.
And we got these community showers. I was the second one on the left. He was the third one on the left.
You don't want to be next to him when you shower, for sure.
He comes in, he was like, "Man, that was so awesome." You know, I could tell you were kind of setting that picture up. I'm so gullible that I'm thinking, wow, Greg Maddux is like picking my brain about hitting. And I can feel people in other parts of the shower kind of snickering. And I looked at them, and then I looked down. Sure enough, he was urinating on my leg.
It was just good team fun.
No, it's just good team fun.
Everybody can share in.
And then there was the humor where
that
is like diabolical.
That's just fucking weird, man.
It's just kind of gross. Like, what?
Yeah. So I see some weird shit in locker rooms. That's up there. It's one of those again a kind of a cerebral kind of prank where nobody's gonna expect you're gonna be pissing on their leg, but at the same time.
Like, what the world? Ugh.
You know, there's a saying, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, don't piss my leg and tell me I'm taking a shower.
Yeah.
So
where we were playing in Tampa, and Walt Weiss got hit.
And he gets bumped again. That's
y'all remember Tanya Sturts?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The third hit batter today.
This might be a retaliation.
Maddux is on the bench. He goes, "Hey, Walter." He goes, "Yeah, doggy." He goes, "Is it time?" He goes, "It's time." I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "I'm going to hit the first guy comes up." And I said, "Can you get the first two guys out first and maybe hit the third guy?" He goes, "No, I'd rather lose the game than respect to my teammates."
Well, we'll see if Greg Maddux has an answer for that.
So Canseco come up. He hit him in the knee.
Jose Canseco thinks there was no accident to that pitch and is not very happy about it.
One of the negatives about being Greg Maddux is I would imagine if you do hit somebody, they're all thinking it's pretty freaking intentional.
Oh, yes. There's no cop out of like, oh, but pitch got away from me.
Right.
Yeah.
Here they come. Now they're gathering toward Maddux, right?
Maddux is trying to get the attention of Canseco.
Mad Dog looked at Canseco and said, "Walt told me to do it."
Wow.
Yeah. Now, the funny thing about that too is think about the relationship with Canseco and Walt Weiss. Canseco, Rookie of the Year for the A's. The very next year, Rookie of the Year, Walt Weiss.
Yep.
Right. World Series together, played together for many years. So he's certainly playing off on that relationship too.
And the Braves take 2 out of 3 from Tampa Bay. Nice job by Greg Maddux.
With Greg and his ways, it's amazing, that he didn't get beat up.
He was funny and unassuming, but on the mound, he cut your heart out.
So after 1995, they go to the World Series the next year against the Yankees, and Maddux is still pitching really well.
Go back and look at Game 2 that Greg Maddux pitched at Yankee Stadium. I mean, it's lost to history because they didn't win the World Series. That's one of the greatest pitched World Series games I've ever seen.
Double play ball. I think he was actually setting him up.
Just the way he would slightly move the baseball off the barrel of the Yankees hitters, time and time again.
Had him reaching.
Ground ball, ground ball, ground ball. Anytime you needed a big out, it was there.
He can chew you up and spit you out.
Just the artistry of that game, to me, was the definition of who Maddux was.
After 96, he's just putting up numbers that are going to lead to 300 wins and 3,000 strikeouts and Cooperstown and all of those things.
Gosh, I want to say that was a 7-year run. He had a 7-year run where he never missed a start and had an ERA barely above 2, averaging about 240 innings a year.
An overall brilliant performance. I don't know what else we can.
That is
absurd.
Outrageous.
Yep.
So, I mean, at what point, mid-90s, did he earn the Hall?
He got into the Hall in like 20. I think he retired in 2007, so it would have been like 2013.
Right.
2014,
but I'm saying,
maybe.
like, at what point in his career did he earn it?
Oh, by the end of the 90s, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, already 4 Cy Youngs, though.
Yeah.
By the mid-90s.
Right. But, like, in terms of, and I mean, I guess that'd be an interesting thing that I'll have to maybe weed through in the coming weeks is who won the most Cy Youngs with the fewest wins, and is that person in the Hall of Fame?
My guess would be Sandy Koufax.
Yeah. I bet that's a very good guess. Yeah. Interesting.
Can say about the guy.
And it sort of stayed the same in Atlanta. Greg Maddux was still a great pitcher, but not quite as great.
He is 37, and they do take their toll.
The Braves were still a great team.
10 straight division titles.
But a little bit of disappointment crept in.
The Atlanta Braves played 162 games, and everything went sour for them here.
It is kind of brutal. We only got the one ring. It is brutal, but the division titles, it kind of takes the sting out of only winning one World Series.
Congratulations to Greg Maddux. His 15th win. First pitcher in Major League history to do that in 16 consecutive seasons.
So in 2000,
That's nuts. 15 wins in 16 consecutive seasons.
Yep.
Talk about consent, and that's the thing is that I feel like some of these pitchers who even do have Cy Young seasons, you'll see them like flash for a season or two, and then they kind of dip and they either completely fade out or they just kind of recede back from those heights that they reached for a season or two. To pitch that consistently and just dominate for that long is just ridiculous. And to be healthy too. The fact that he didn't really have any, and I think that goes back to in his adolescence learning that it's not about just freaking airing it out. It's about pacing yourself and picking your pitches, picking your spots, placing it, and having control more than anything else.
Yeah, and it's not like he wasn't getting up into the 90s, which, in this time period was pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just that exchange with Bonds, he was like, 92, 94.
Yep.
For his two-seamer. I mean, that was the high end back then. Right? So, very impressive.
2003, it comes to an end in Atlanta, and he actually goes back to the Cubs.
Hitting ninth and pitching for your Chicago Cubs, number 31, Greg Maddux.
I thought it'd be cool to go back and retire where I started. And I got offered a contract that time.
Maddux, what a play! A miraculous grab to Rob Redmond. Oh, man. Complete game shutout for Greg Maddux. He's 3 wins away from 300 in his career.
It was never a goal, till you get close to it.
Maddux, 38 years old, 299 victories. And if he wins today, he will become the 22nd Major League pitcher to reach 300 victories.
It's obviously a special number for pitchers, and, to be able to do it, it's pretty cool.
The 22nd pitcher in the history of baseball to collect 3.
Against the Giants. And Bonds.
300 wins in a career. Congratulations, Greg Maddux.
Wins his 300th game and then, goes to LA and, pitches okay. But what I always liked about the later years in LA, San Diego, is I think he seemed to be having a good time.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was, I was old and washed up, and, my kids were getting older, and being in Vegas, I wanted to play somewhere close to home.
Greg Maddux, the professional.
You mean to tell me that my boys, had they moved to Vegas sooner, could have had Maddux?
Missed opportunity, Greco.
Yep.
Seriously. So, and talk about a missed opportunity. Around this time is when we started enlisting the older veteran. Our first foray was Frank Thomas around this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That would have been phenomenal.
That would have been fun.
Professor is on the mound facing his former team.
Andrew Jones, he said, "You're rooting for him, ain't you?" I said, "I hope we win 1-0 and he gets a no decision."
I think I was 3 for 9 in my 9 at bats, and I remember pretty much all 3 of them.
And it's hit in the air to right field. It's going to fall in for a base hit. Giles has to play it on a hop, and Chipper aboard with a leadoff single to start things here in the 6th inning.
I stole the first 2 times I got on base.
And there goes Chipper Jones. Andrew takes it. Barrett's throw. It's another steal.
And he walks behind the mound. He goes, "If you steal third, I'm doming you the next time up." So I didn't steal third.
Hi, I'm Tom Glavine. And I'm John Smoltz.
I'm Greg Maddux.
And you're watching This Week in Baseball.
Are you me with this?
The last time I faced him, I take my hat off and I show him my bald head, which is all he cared about. He proceeded to get a hit.
So here we go, the Friends squaring off. And a line drive base
Look
hit
at
up
that.
the middle.
Slap it into the opposite field.
And now he gets booed.
And that spot right there, I thought would put him into a trance.
That's awesome.
He took a picture of the top of my head in a bus, and every time I call him, the top of my head comes up.
The joking around, the laughing, screaming, all that stuff, and being cruel to one another was all in good fun, and it was a lot of good times.
Come on, we got stranded.
Oh my God.
Yeah, these guys are bad teammates. I never got a naked hug from them.
We got the first hand dealt, huh?
He looks especially like John Tapper right here
pants.
with the sport coat.
The bar rescue
The
guy.
bar rescue guy. Yeah.
That's what this hand is. Poopy cards.
We mentioned earlier there are so many stories about Greg Maddux.
So I'm in LA. I'm 42. Throw this pitch.
I mean, just bam. Can't throw it any better.
And I looked back at the scoreboard and it said 82. And I went, oh.
And it was a frickin' bullet. And then I said, let me throw a changeup. And that was 79. And I went, oh, man, there's just kind of not enough separation anymore.
That was your last year?
Yeah. You know how you always want to play one more year? I think I did that like 3 years. I was content.
Welcome to Cooperstown for the 75th anniversary of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum.
2014 inductee, Greg Maddux.
Maddux receives 97.2% of the vote.
It's like the ultimate all-star.
Another. Who didn't vote for
What
him?
jackass. I mean, come on.
I mean, I get it, but I don't.
Our team. You're always nervous until you give your speech. You definitely don't want to bore people.
I was very fortunate to have a brother that I could learn from. He even taught me a little bit about science.
Oh, gosh.
It has to do with a little methane and a lighter, and I still get a huge kick out of it today.
We have fun. We have fun.
That was a unique relationship that I'm like.
The next 7 years were spent winning division titles, watching the kids grow up, watching John Smoltz's hairline recede.
My bald head was just all he cared about.
I spent 12 years in Chicago, 11 in Atlanta, and both places are very special to me. Without experiences in both cities, I would not be standing here today. On behalf of my family and all those I've mentioned, thank you for this incredible honor.
I'm not a Hall of Famer. I'm the guy that doesn't take the trash out, gets cramps, picks up the dog out of the yard.
You meet someone every now and then that's like, oh, that's really cool. And, Chase and I probably have the same, like, no, it's really not.
Yeah. He was always fun dad, though. He was always just playing around or jumping in the pool when they were little.
Chase did not get the athletic gene.
No.
His daughter, maybe. The dog, definitely.
He'd always take us to mini golf on his off days. Yeah. He'd have to bring his own putter every time, would take it way too seriously.
I went there to practice my putting. No.
Yeah, he wasn't bonding with us. He was practicing his golf game.
I feel like Atlanta, I was too young to really truly remember. So definitely Chicago, because I was able to go in all the time. Grew up, throwing bullpens in the outfield and, taking BP and taking grounders at third.
When he was younger, the Braves really didn't want the kids in there. Snuck him in one day in Pittsburgh. It's the second inning. and one of the clubbies comes down, and they're like, "Hey, Greg, Chase is up there throwing up." I'm like, oh, really? Are you kidding me? Go up there and come to find out he drank like 9 slushies and was throwing up the blue slushy all over the Pirates clubhouse.
They had a make your own slushy station in, the food room. So I went in there as, a little kid and was just loading up the syrup. Just couldn't get enough. And
yeah, that was pretty funny.
As he got older, I remember it just being like so funny. Yeah. I remember in, I think it was San Diego, and you were like 40, and they were just like yelling at you, like, "Eat another pizza, Maddux." We loved that one. That was funny.
Oh, San Diego.
If you asked me what was the one line that he said that most stands out to you, it would be, "I'm playing with house money." He would say that to me all the time. Anytime I'd talk about, another Cy Young or some other record that he was approaching, an ERA under 2, he's like, "I'm playing with house money."
I never thought I was the best, but I always try to get the most out of my ability. Some guys try harder than others. Some guys work harder than others.
Everything to him was house money. That he was much better than he thought, pitched a lot longer than he thought, played on more winning teams than he thought.
This is the good one, though, the World Series trophy. That's one you share for a lifetime with your teammates and family and friends and city. The Cy Youngs are nice, but I'm really probably the only one that cares about them. Lots of people care about that.
I mean, think about literally, if you ever wanted a table on your first hand and you have some money in your pocket, everything's a lot easier after that. There's no pressure to try to, I gotta win that back. Greg Maddux pitched in the major leagues for more than 20 years with money in his pocket.
Tonight's starting pitcher, number 31, Greg Maddux.
I mean, let's face it, he's the greatest pitcher I've ever seen in my lifetime.
He is the best, folks. He is the best.
Day in, day out. Start from start to start, consistently great.
It's known as a Maddux if you throw a complete game with less than 100 pitches, because Greg did it so often.
There's nobody better than Greg Maddux. I don't care who it is.
He's the greatest pitcher I ever saw.
The best pitcher in the game.
3,000 strikeouts for Greg Maddux.
I don't think there's anybody that compares to doing more with less.
There's nothing intimidating about Greg Maddux. His stature, his athletic ability, his fastball. Nothing's intimidating until you sit in your locker at the end of the night and you're sucking on an 0 for 4 because he's completely dominated you.
Got it. What a job.
His demeanor was always the same. He just took one pitch to the next at bat, to the next kill. That was it. That's great.
When he came in from the ballpark and put his baseball uniform on, must have been something kind of like what Superman would do. Putting his cape on. Take the mound and you work your magic and do the things you do and win over 300 games and 4 Cy Youngs and a World Series, and you're a Hall of Fame pitcher. Lots of people emulated him. I know I admired watching him pitch, but only he could do what he did.
There were so many little things about Maddux that made him so great. I mean, he was the best fielding pitcher of his generation. 18 Gold Gloves.
Maddux, one of the best fielding pitchers in the game.
Filthy.
There it is.
Filthy. And
Boom.
One of the smartest managers and coaches that I ever had would talk about how defense, you can have as many at-bats as you want, as long as you don't get an out. But if you can take one out away, the offense only gets 27 out. If you can take one away at a time, they never get those back. Those runs can keep adding up infinitely, but there's only so many outs. So if you can take one of those away, that changes the whole game. And the fact that he can do that with some modicum of an idea of where the ball's going and field his position so efficiently and effectively that he did, That's huge.
Most Gold
That's
Gloves of any player ever.
unbelievable.
Wow.
Yep.
I just look at Greg and I think from the neck up, he was better than anybody.
Maddux, though, you go straight from kindergarten to the master's program.
He's just smarter. And he'd be the last person to let you know that. He's not going to take any credit. Yeah, I got lucky. Yeah, you got lucky 355 times, didn't you?
Strike three call, there's your ball game.
Yes, he gets the shutout.
I'm amazed at what he's done. I'm proud of what he's done. Going through it, it's a whirlwind. You know, it goes by so fast, and you think back, you're like, did that all really happen? Because sometimes it feels like it's a dream because it was so ridiculously amazing.
I'm proud of the career I had. Just to be able to do that for as long as I did it, you know, you're just fortunate. You're fortunate that you're able to do that.
We'll never see that happen again. To pitch that well, that often, time and time again. I mean, I hope people enjoyed it then because it's the last you'll see of it.
That's it? The Strat. Guys been up there? They got a roller coaster up there, I guess. I haven't done it.
All right. Now, my big question to you two. Is Maddux one of the top 10, top 5? Where does he sit as one of the greatest pitchers of all time?
I would say top 5.
I'd say top 5 as well. I'd have to really think about that to see like where specifically to rank him and how far back are we going to, because obviously there's, you know, baseball is old as time. So like sort of feel like where do we want to draw the line? But
I mean, I would assume live ball error. But I mean, at the same time, I don't have an answer either. I'll tell you what, knowing what I know now and how cerebral he was changes the amount of respect that I had for him.
Yep.
Agreed.
I mean, you know, this all started because of the Cy Youngs.
Mm-hmm.
My man won 4 in a row. Those
Just
can be
unreal.
debated, right? I mean, those can be debated, though, right? Did he earn those? Is it reputation?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who voted? How did that work?
Mm-hmm.
355 wins, 18 Gold Gloves. Some of the stats we see with complete games under 100 pitches, ridiculous.
The 355 wins is just like, talk about never being done again. No one's gonna even get close to 300 nowadays, let alone 355. Holy crap!
Yeah, and probably one of the last to hit that threshold as hard as he did.
Well, and you know, that's another argument to be made for pitching in the way that he did, in that more cerebral manner, because assuming a freak incident doesn't happen, it's going to increase the odds that you pitch longer, because you're not going to maybe incur as many injuries or not put quite as much maybe strain on you, where you can just, you know, keep going out there. Because with him, you know, he was brilliant in the 90s, but then, you know, after the 90s, he was kind of like a solid number 3 on staffs, and that just allowed him to keep racking up, just keep padding those win stats.
So he's let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks like he's 8th all time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the only one after 1950 is Warren Spahn in the top 8.
Wow.
For wins?
Yep.
That's
He's one more than Clemens.
Well, he just skyrocketed to being your favorite pitcher now, huh, man?
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. Really is.
Yep. 8th all time.
I mean, it's funny because, had you told me even 2 months ago before I stumbled upon that podcast, I'm sorry, that documentary had, hey, by the way, guys, we're gonna spend, an hour and a half talking about Greg Maddux. I'd be like, sure, we could probably come up with that, but I had no idea the level of, um, I guess, intensity without being intense that he actually took the craft. And I'll tell you what, that's part of the reason why I love this fucking game. Right? It's every pitch. It's the Rolo tapping out. It's the Taylor falling, going to bed. Right?
Yep.
Is all that. But I'll tell you what, I love it. Mr. Taylor, I don't know if Mr. Rolo's going to pop in. I think his phone died.
Okay.
But
all right. Good night, my friend. 2 weeks.
2 weeks, sir.
All right.
Take care.
You too.
And that was just me. Waive Fair Podcast. Good night. Thanks to Greg Maddux. We do this late. We're fathers. We got to put our kids to bed. We're exhausted. Good night, folks. Till the next one. Oh, wait. I was just doing a solo sign off.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Apologies. My one phone died, and thought I'd hop on at least for the closeout. Did Matt skip town as well?
Well, Mr. Taylor was as you saw, comfy, cozy, all tucked into bed. So he's eager to say goodnight. So, Mr. Rolo, parting words.
Just that, Maddux, as unassuming as he is, I feel like that just makes him all the more fascinating to learn about. So I'm just really happy that you alerted us to this documentary, because he was always someone that I was like, oh yeah, he's one of the greats. But because he is unassuming, he doesn't pack the punch that a Randy Johnson or a Clemens or dare I say Pedro does. But then when you actually learn about him, you're just like, holy shit.
Well,
It was really impressive.
And add to the fact that he was probably one of the first to really focus on mental health.
Mm-hmm. That too.
As a extra muscle to exercise. So I appreciate it. Mr. Rolo, thank you for allowing me to take you down this journey. And 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.
Take care.
You as well.